think any budget of any department that we approve, we have the ability to go through that budget presentation line by line
And the more specific you do that, the more specifically you break it down, the more control the commissioners have.
Right.
I mean, for example, mine has like 5 lines in it or something.
Right.
It's not very specific, but it's also very simple. But big agencies, they can have 100 lines in there, whereas then you can control really where that money is.
how much you allow for each one of those line items.
Yep, and
What we've done is usually done when we say budget, like the attorney's budget gets X amount of dollars. As long as he stays within his budget, everything's fine. If we want a specific line item, the specific one, his professional services cannot go over blah, blah, blah.
right.
It
It almost should be like that anyway. If I say, you know what, I spent too much on professional services, but I still have a ton in operating, so who cares? I almost feel like I should get permission from the commissioners.
To pull from that one, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
legally, I feel, if it's probably not something you guys care about and want to micromanage, but really, maybe.
But we'd probably have to add staff to micromanage line by line.
Right.
Everybody's budget adjustments, well, that's because people will start spending out of, they'll call something a different category.
'Cause
And
I-
that's what they've done.
Betcha it happens pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Some of these bigger departments
Yeah.
that they're like, oh, screw it, we got plenty of money here, so we'll,
Yeah, we'll
just move stuff around. And I think already that's the commissioner's prerogative, not the elected official's
Because
prerogative.
that's not the way it was presented when you start dragging.
You approved
Right,
what was
right,
presented.
What was presented, right.
Right, and that's all you approved. And so when it starts getting changed,
agree.
I think you need permission.
I
You know,
agree.
kind of our policy is if you go, and also if you do anything that wasn't in the budget that's more than $5,000, you come to the commissioners. But yeah, I think that if you start changing your line items, then you come to the commissioners and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And really, the commissioners might not care if you're going to stay within your budget.
Yeah.
But
But they also might care too. depending on what they're-
especially if people are going, you know what, I'm going to drop these 3 employees and give everybody raises over here. And I mean,
Well,
we've
we
had
had-
problems with that, and I
We
think
had
that's
to do that in
illegal.
The sheriff's department, these positions that were budgeted for but were not filled, and then using that budgeted money for those employees to do other stuff. So yeah, I think that's a very good point, John. I think that's a very good point. And I think that maybe that's something that we need to maybe re-emphasize, that if you're starting to make greater than $1,000 adjustments in a line item budget, that you're doing other things with it, then we need to know about it and also need our approval on it.
If we started that, I mean,
Yeah.
but however we want to do it, we can. It's going to take a lot of time.
Is that gonna be a
It's gonna
management
be
nightmare?
A management nightmare, but if that needs to be done, it can be. That's
Well,
all I'll get done.
Well.
I won't get it done, I won't get remodeling done, I won't get, I mean, and the other side of it is our budgets are very generic. We have 4 or 5 line items. Operating, well, I call it operating, well, do you call it operating? Well, I do, well, I don't, so then we're gonna get into
To a micromanagement nightmare.
We've managed a lot closer in the last couple of years. If that's something we want to go to in the future, I think we need to give them more time to consider that you're not allowed to overspend a line item budget. Because I can think of, well, for instance, when we ended up buying that trailer for the maintenance budget, they're having to cut back on some of their other things because they didn't have a line item budget for a tractor or a trailer to do it. So
But we approved that, I mean.
Right, so that's
it
different.
as a line item thing, but we didn't adjust their budget.
Well,
We
that's
used it
true.
within the budgets, the line items that they have, but
Yeah.
they're using other line items to cover it.
I don't think you necessarily have to adjust the budget, and it's going to be hard to police in some ways for sure. But we can make it clear that look, you're not to veer from what we're approving,
What you're
Right.
presenting to us and we're.
unless you
approving.
come to us and,
Yeah.
and say, hey, this is why I need to do it, and I'm not going to overspend. I'm still staying within my budget, but
Yeah.
I'm changing this to this. And like I said, likely you guys would be fine with it.
Yeah.
But there might be situations where you're not going to be fine with it.
And that's my point. And this brings up another thing that happened to me. And so there's a commissioner that I've known for 5 years from Mississippi, and he went to John Martin's, spent a couple of days in Garfield County, and then he came here, wanted to see the mountains in Southwest Colorado, and he wanted to see. And he's high up in NACO. He's extremely smart man, and I asked him. I said, "Well, you've been a commissioner for 10 years. What is it that you regret the most? What do you think's wrong with government?" And this is what he said. He says, he says, they're coming at you as a commissioner every day, trying to add more regulation or this or that to your constituents to where they lose their another freedom. And he says, but the only way we're ever going to fix this is, he says, they got you so busy coming at you every day to try to stop all of this stuff. He says, we've got so much stuff that's already out there that needs to be taken away.
Mm-hmm.
But he says his biggest regret is I have never taken anything away that I thought, like if you have two regulations that are duplicate, that you
Get ready to rescind one,
or taking one away. He just was talking about government waste, and he talked about the other thing that he said was, I think he said there was 86 pages of regulations in his county, and then he talked about, and he says, it's hard for when I have a young man or woman come up and say, yeah, I want to tell you what, you live in America, and this entrepreneurship, and you can go and do this and this. He says, but then I got to tell them, well, first of all, you got to figure out to get through all of the 86 pages of the regulations that we have at local level, and then you got to go and you got to look at the 20,000 pages of regulations at the federal level. And if you can navigate all of that, then you might have a chance. So it was very interesting.
Did he tell you an easy way?
Yeah.
Well, and I haven't brought it up to you guys, but so my wife, a realtor, she gets this national magazine, and so in all these counties, and I know that we've had a problem with this in the past, we have this industrial overlay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's these counties that are right and left that are taking away the industrial overlay, and they're making choices on a case-by-case basis, and I ain't so sure that there's something there that we need to look at closer, because we've had lots of problems because it's called an industrial overlay. And I can think of examples is, the TDR deal. That was something that we're doing on a case-by-case basis now, and it is working just fine. And then the other thing I can think of, we haven't had one of them come to us yet, but it went through planning and zoning, but and it happened with that boy that built that metal building right off of the highway 184.
Yeah, Mr. Hurst up there.
Mr. Hurst.
Body shop deal.
Now everybody went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I went up and personally looked. So it's down in a hole. It's right next to a major highway.
Mm-hmm.
You drive a half a mile that way, and you run into another business that's right on the same side of the road.
Storage yard up there.
A storage yard for electric or phone company. And then you drive up another half a mile, and you have a center, the Heritage Center.
Yeah.
And so this micromanagement of people's rights is starting to drive me crazy as a commissioner, to be honest with you.
Well, on a case-by-case basis, I think it holds validity. It gives us an opportunity to look at a presentation or an idea or a desire by somebody and lets us, with before they're carte blanche shut out of it because it doesn't fit one little category of something, it gives us an opportunity to look at it.
One other example that to this day, and this had to do with the city, when Osprey wanted to take their old building and they wanted to put it into a daycare, and they denied it on the concerns of pollution. And I'm sorry, but I have went up there to that industrial park, and I have yet to see the pollution they're talking about. There is nothing. I mean, there's nothing. You got outhouses on one side, you got a construction business down there that might fire up a diesel motor to load it on a truck, but where is all this pollution they're talking about? And because it's called an industrial park, all other uses are out the window. So, anyway, I'm off my soap opera. Let's Rob, are you ready?
Get off your soapbox for a while.
Did they narrow the proposals down pretty much? Or?
They took away the industrial overlays, and they make it. They said it's not working in their community. Their communities.
Morning, Rob.
No, I mean, in those legislative proposals.
Oh, and the legislative proposals. You know what? They did not. They took off. Well, Weld County took all of their health service. They took all that off. Knocked out 6 of them just like that. But it's all still there, and the fight begins on the 13th of October.
How are things at the road?
Good.
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 Good. Do we have one more? Listen.
You can have mine if you want. I got it on the computer.
Oh, I got one. All right.
Yeah, they're good. We had our monthly safety meeting this morning. We do that once a month on the first Monday. And we talked about a couple things, and one of them was an accident in Bayfield last week where a young man was killed from a fall from a man lift, which the fall didn't kill him, but the impalement on a grade stake did through a staph infection. So we're constantly reminding our guys, no matter how little it is, a little cut, bruise, report it to us.
Take care of it.
And of course, I didn't know this till this incident, but the stomach area apparently is a high potential of a staph infection, more than a finger or an eye or whatever. So the young man actually died from the staph infection more than he did the fall, which was a terrible accident.
That's not that Shaw kid that used to work here, is it?
I don't know who he was. He's 23 or 24 years old. It was an OSHA inspection. That was what I got on the newsletter. But it was such a sad story because if the fall didn't kill him, the staph infection did, which was so sad because they had him in the hospital and they were well under way of being recovering, and then he got that staph infection.
Yeah.
He died from infection. So,
Is that recent?
yeah, it was last week. Yeah, and so the big point was for us was we've talked about man lifts from time to time in our area, but we don't have them very much. So, them are the ones that are susceptible to a deadly injury because they don't remember to tie and they don't remember to wear the harness. They don't do this because they don't do it every day. We talk about it all the time, being in a bucket lift, trimming a tree, tie off, But if you work on a bridge job with a contractor that builds bridges, they remember that because they do that every day. It's like getting up and tying your shoes, So here was an incident, though, where we had to talk about, please report your injuries to us because if you get an infection, at least we have a record of what happened. Was it cut by a wire? Was it cut by a stake in the ground? What was it? It could help the doctors with some infection. So that was the big subject this morning.
Could you send that to me so I can
Absolutely,
share it with,
sure. The maintenance crew?
Tanner?
Oh, Tanner too, yeah.
And then maintenance crew doesn't have one yet, but that would be.
Yeah, I would be happy to. So, and then we talked about some training on the water trucks. We've spent a lot of money this year on pumps, and so we've hired a bunch of new guys, and these guys go get on a water truck. And I looked at a couple of particular ones, and I said, "How do you run it?" He goes, "Well, I don't really know."
How do you run it?
How do you run it? A water truck, because you got levers and valves everywhere. These are vacuum trucks, and so it wasn't that they didn't do anything wrong because they hadn't been on one, but lack of training.
Yeah.
Foremans, where are you out there? Get your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
We don't want to spend all this money on these pumps.
Driver out there or something who doesn't know how to operate.
Absolutely,
trucks in, yeah.
absolutely. So we talked a lot about that and cell phones. I don't think we have any policy against cell phone use particularly. But I think we're getting there. I think the time is coming.
There might be one.
I think you're not allowed to use a company cell phone for private use. I know there's that policy. It's a county
But
thing.
most people we don't even have that many county cell phones anymore.
Right.
We reimburse for, instead of carrying 2 phones, we reimburse a portion of what it costs for a cell phone to the individual.
Right.
We're
But that's
having
not-
that problem at the cell barn.
It's
We had a kid, and the only way that we could stop him was we put him in the hole where if you're not always looking up, you're going to get ran over.
That's a good way. I got a couple more. You want to
Yeah.
hire someone?
He doesn't look at that phone anymore.
That's a good point.
You get a basket when you walk in on the job, you throw your cell phone in the basket, and you pick it up at lunch, and you pick it up when you go home.
Just like the Old West, check them in at the bar,
Check 'em
boys.
at the bar, that's right. No, I'll tell you, it's coming to that.
It
It's
is,
coming to that. I
and
hate
we
to
had
say
this
that,
we
but
had this conversation last month with
it's
the guys,
crazy.
and it's more and more companies throughout the United States are making that a policy. And it's not so much the talking on them, because they've got hands-free talking on, it's the texting.
Mm-hmm.
It's this constant barrage of texting.
Yeah.
And it's
Or
dangerous.
looking at Facebook or Twitter, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They're-
So
Mind magnets.
we got two issues: safety, driving a truck, you can't be texting, obviously. But then you got, what are you doing privately on company time? Your work efficiencies are dropping. It's costing billions of dollars a year in money to all these companies, and we're no different. We're government, but we're no different.
No,
You know,
same baby.
Anyway, we talked a lot about that today. So that was some subjects we talked about. So.
Rob, you can make your own within your department too.
Yeah.
If you want to say, look, no, cell phone use.
John, I thought about it, but with the way I feel about it, if I do it, then I think the county should back me up with the rest of it, So.
I agree and see your point, but there's different types of departments, and some
But if
use
you're
their cell
driving-
phone frequently. Well, driving's a lot.
Driving's a lot,
Driving.
yes. Mhm.
But I know social services uses their cell phones constantly, and it's legit for work reasons, and that's different than the road department. And so, just might be a problem to try to put one policy in every department.
Yes. And a good point of this is I actually like a cell phone now. It saves me chasing down an employee up in the mountain somewhere where we can't find him to tell him that his wife just had a wreck or his son just broke his leg in a football game or whatever. Now it's easy. So we used to be, we chase him around all afternoon looking for him. Like, where is this guy? So there's that side of the conversation. Absolutely. But then there's the abusive side of it. And that's the side that's hard to control, because I just gave it to him to use it for the good side.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, at what point do you finally draw a line in the sand and say that's it? So anyway, we're getting there. We're working towards at least a what's the word I'm looking for? You do it yourself kind of thing. Be good, be right, and it won't be a big issue.
System,
Right.
self-policing or something.
Self-policing, yeah. So.
Here is our handbook, so everybody is in.
But that's for county cell phones, right?
Well, we have employees who supervise an emergency room, and stuff for that, point two.
Yeah. It's related to the guys that are working like foremans, And I'm guilty of it. I use my phone, but I don't use it for personal stuff. I just really don't. I don't have time. It's business for me, But I'm still using it. But I think there's a difference.
Well, there can be advantages to them. I mean, like you said, there's definite advantages to them, and it's a personal commitment by your employees not to.
I think so too.
I mean, and I don't know how you instill that in them to say, hey, we know you've got the cell phone and it is for a purpose, but we need to feel confident that you're not going to be out there doing Facebook and Twitter and all the Snapchat and all that stuff while you're on our job, while you're working here. You do that when you're at home or wherever. But
It's kind of neat.
It's a tough deal.
For me personally, my family has always been very good about not bothering me at work because they were trained that way.
Yeah.
It was like I said, don't bother me. If there's an emergency, call me. And I know if I see your name, I know I better answer.
Something.
They take that approach.
Yeah.
Where there's so many guys like, well, okay, we'll go to dinner tonight. There's that side of the coin.
Yeah.
Mine don't go there. Mine stays on the emergency side. So now 4:30, 5 o'clock, here they come. They all want to know what's going on. So that's my time then. So that's the way I look at it. So anyway, that was a good meeting today. We went on for a good hour, and we had a lot of conversation between the water trucks and the training and the cell phones and this accident. And it was a good meeting. So anyway, work schedule. We did start placing gravel last week in the Cortez District on Road K3. That's out here behind the Maverick. Got a couple of days in there early in the week, and then we got rained out Wednesday and Thursday, and it was good to have the rain, and we got a lot of rain. So, it was good. So we bailed out of that, went and bladed roads. The schedule don't show it that way, but that's what they did. They took all the blades out and started blading roads throughout the South Valley. And even some of the roads that had mag chloride were starting to pothole out. We went in and opened them up and relayed them. And so that was a big help, actually, to get the rain. So they're back in business again today, hauling the K3. We're also doing with the Dolores District and Roundup District. I'll jump ahead a little bit, but we're also doing blade patching today. So we've got 7 trucks on the road, 4 are hauling gravel to K3 and 3 are hauling asphalt out of the Mancus pit over there, over towards 29 and 28, up through that country. Kind of close where 3 trucks can keep up. As the week goes on and we get further and further away from the hot plant, then we'll start peeling trucks back off the gravel haul and put them towards that. And eventually it'll just get to where we won't haul gravel because it's not worth the time, until we get more trucks. But we'll kind of play that give and take game this week and do what we can on that. So
That's where the back ones are looking.
yeah, Mancus there with 4 Corners. Yeah. So
Is that what those white marks are going up the Dolores Norwood Road Hill? Where it's starting to,
yeah, we're going to fill those in with blade patch. Also working with Dave Waters, has bought a laydown machine, and he wants to try it at his expense, hook him onto our trucks and trying to lay some of these in with a paving machine. Because I thought about that before. I thought about, man, would that work? Well, you hate to invest $100,000 or whatever it would be, I'm just guessing, for a laydown machine, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And so
now you can find out.
Dave bought a machine, and he's planning on paving, and he wants to train his people how to run it. And it's a good way to say take road in, which is on our list to go do, and there's a lot of shoulder damage, and see just what that will do on the shoulder towards the center line. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Won't hurt. Try it. It's not charging me.
Finding out for free. Can't beat that.
So we're going to try that this week. So that was kind of a good thing.
does he have a lot of that recycled pavement?
I don't know about. He has some. Yeah, he's got a pretty good pile up there. Yeah.
I'd heard a story up there at K3, well, maybe it's the other one. It is on Road L, Rob Pope,
Yep.
the
Yep.
subdivision.
Yep.
That he used recycled pavement. It looks like a paved road, and it was half price of chip seal on it.
Was it really? He just used that stuff with
What
oil?
did you spray, kerosene or diesel fuel on
Added
it?
oil to it.
Added oil to it, right? Instead of using chips. Wow, interesting. I know that road. I'm going to look at it. Yeah, that's interesting.
In the subdivision?
So where did you get the grindings?
Dave Waters.
Oh, you got it from Dave. Oh, wow. Wow. Dave got it off a job, so that's my problem with it. It's hard to get.
Hard to come by.
Yeah,
It's hard to come
this
by.
the last couple of years has been like a lot of it between that mess down at the Toyac intersection there at the truck stop when they had to grind and kept messing up whatever was going on down there. They made tons of that stuff. It got spread around the county. Different guys got it. And then, of course, this job here this year on 491. And they'll see more of it next year probably. But they keep that under control. They need that to relay. So,
Relay, yeah. A lot of that, they relay it, don't they?
The only one they didn't was that section from the Maverick to the Selbine. That section up there, they took it to the plant to recycle and make asphalt with. So that's a great idea. I think it's neat to talk to Rob about that. But access to that stuff can be hard to find at times, So, yeah.
You have to have a pretty big job to get
I think so,
a big
yeah.
amount
I think if you lived in a
of
city like Denver, LA, Phoenix, where you're constantly grinding, and I think that might be a commodity that's available, But around here, it's been the last couple of years, it's been a pretty good deal, but I think that'll die down. So.
Use it while you can.
Use it while you can. That's a good idea Rob has. So anyway, the Dolores, Mancus is over. They got all their roads bladed last week. That rain was tremendous help to them. So this week they're working on a few more cleanup, erosion repairs, and then kind of getting them into the gravel and those approaches over there. We got some gravel at Mancus now. Get a truck and a backhoe and go fix the approaches to the edges of the chip seal roads and get them all done. So driveways and different things. We also did some of that last week with the Dolores crew. So we're kind of working that fall type work now, getting ready for winter. Next 10 days though will be blade patching with Dolores and the Roundup crew. They've got kind of a good crew to do that with, and they're all taking care of that. Pretty much covered all the roads out at Pleasant View and Yellow Jacket. Got most of those bladed. With the rain, that helped. We actually had to stop blading because it got too wet. Trucks, they're hauling to K3 and they're hauling to blade patching, and that will be ongoing for the next few weeks. Randy is actually changing cone liners this week. He's actually doing that and setting up another screen to make chips with. So he's down this week, and then he'll be back to work next week. And the Wiminuche crew is doing fine. They're just pounding away at it. And of course, the rain slowed them down to a halt, but they're back in business and running again this morning. So making a nice pile there and doing well. So, I think we're doing okay. The schedule looks good. So, good. Any questions on that? Discussion on green roads. Since road 35.6 came up, do we have I'll hand these out so you have a copy of them. we've gotten a few phone calls, not a large amount, but the word's getting out that we give away free gravel. So we had one person that called on a very good, well-graded road that has a little spot that they want to go get a load of gravel and put on it because it's free gravel. So we're saying, okay, we don't go in there with this. This is liability issues now and things like this. So I had decided it's time to put together a criteria to get free gravel. And I come up with 10 items that I think are pretty much what I've been saying for the last few years without making it official. And it's just, this is what it is, and this is how I look at it. And it's certainly subject to conversation or change, which I try to cover my bases on the bottom where I can change my mind if I want to. So kind of thing for whatever needs are out there, not to be ornery or nothing, just if it's not needed, we won't do it. So.
Yeah.
But basically, the road has to be green primitive status, not green graded, because green graded, it's one we
That's
take
your
care of,
name, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So, it has to have prior approval from the road department. You can't just go to the pit and start loading yourself. You need to let me know what the width and the thickness of it's going to be, because it was never intended to be 24 feet wide or any of that. You know, it was more or less a trail to a domestic dwelling, not a hay shed or a corral or whatever. It was to get people in and out of their house, you know, to be fair with everybody.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
inch and a half or 3 inch minus. I'm not wanting to give away my high $1.75. That's for our graded roads. To build a base. It can be limited to availability. If I don't have it, don't mean you get it. If I don't have it, so. And what pit? We've had some arguments about that before. They didn't want to haul out that pit. That's too far. Well, I'm sorry. That's where it comes from. You know. So there's that give and take. We have to work with that too. So. And we don't haul it, and we certainly don't spread it. You know, they better have a little tractor or whatever. Now, that doesn't mean I won't go back and clean it up as time goes by. We blade all the roads once a year anyway, and we'll smooth it out a little bit. So, business hours only, not special days. And then, of course, we have the authority to deny a request if we see fit, need to. So, I'm going to put that out there if you guys are okay with that. And that kind of gives us a guideline.
That's a good deal.
Are you sure you've covered every reason that you want to be able to deny their request? Like number 10, I almost want to make it more broad. I mean, if you've covered everything in there and you're comfortable with it, I'm okay with it.
What do you mean by more broad? Just saying.
I mean, you say you have the authority to deny their
Based just on
request
that
based
criteria.
on these things listed here.
Okay.
And I kind of want you to have the ability to deny their request.
At any time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
There
you.
go.
I like that one too, but I was afraid I'd get in trouble. So.
Even if it falls outside of
Okay.
this, these 9 things you've listed.
Okay.
Um,
I agree with you. I just didn't know how to say it without causing a problem. So I like that one.
Well.
So. I don't want to be.
Well, it gives you the discretion, gives you some discretion, and
Right,
that-
you know, it might be arguable whether or not you have the gravel available. You know, you
Right.
might have plans on what you're needing and
Exactly.
more,
Right,
and,
right.
and you do have enough to give them, but you want to do a project first. And I just don't want to get into arguments that you didn't list it.
I think, and I brought Doug in here because one of the pieces that we have is when we just did the official roadmap, there's one other category. What is it
There's
called?
the graded category that fits between the primitive and unmaintained, and the gravel. So gravel's a full spec kind of gravel road. And then there's the graded, which I kind of saw as it has drainage structures, but more of an earthen type surface on it. So,
So
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
we might want to set graded or primitive because I'm thinking of County Road 35.6. That's not a primitive road where it's going down to the BLM. It's a graded.
I think I agree with Doug. I think in my mind I was thinking graded as gravel, so I agree.
Right,
I
there's-
should
there's-
define gravel as one of our up
The
to speed
ones-
roads, right?
The ones that we do the one-time blading on
Is graded.
is
Okay.
graded or primitive.
Graded or primitive. I have to agree with that. I was thinking the other way, but I agree with that.
A lot of the farm roads are kind of like that before it's like, you know, it's kind of becoming a full spec road because you add drainage structures and it's got water ditches, but it's not.
I agree.
Just we can have both of those
Categories
categories
that
in
are
there.
qualified.
Because like you said, and then what do we call the fuller maintained?
Right.
Or what are those
Gravel.
called? Just
The gravel and the paved are just
Gravel.
fully built. But I'd say the graded is also at or approaching county width spec. You know, so it's perhaps it just doesn't have something gravel.
that we can put this in line with what we offer to the 35, what is it, 25?
Yeah, I'll put this back together and I'll send you a copy for record. So. And then Doug will stay here for a second. I want to go ahead and talk about 35.6 since we brought it up. We've, since the last meeting, we went up and did a survey of signs, changing red roads to green road signs, all the way down through there. So that's in the process of happening. We're also in the process of ordering some different signs that say limited maintenance, travel at your own risk kind of things. I can't now say you can't go in there, but I can at least leave the impression that it's probably not a good road to drive on, which it's not, to be honest with you.
No, it's not.
I almost got stuck, Clinton. I went through not 35.6, but the next one over, 35.9. It's like, holy cow. These guys need some gravel. And they like living that way. So I'm going to put up signs that say limited access, or limited maintenance, I should say. Travel at your own risk. No winter maintenance on some of these.
Should there also be up there, because that road that curls around and goes up and dead ends, and
Dead ends.
should we put maybe a dead end sign?
There is one there.
There's
one there, and I'm going to add a sign, travel at your own risk, because that road is actually better than 35.9. You don't go nowhere. You come to the end, and it stops. It's a dead end road. Yes. Okay. And then these things are happening as quickly as we can make it happen. Sometimes things won't move as quickly as we like because it takes time to get the signs ordered and bought and put up.
Yeah,
But there's still zero access to the BLM.
I know.
So how do I handle this? I just turned everything into green. There's no place to turn around. Well, there is. I guess you can turn around at 35.9. But there's no place to even get in. There's not an access to the... Do we cut the fence? I don't know. It's in our right-of-way. Or their easement. It's ours now. I mean, it's green now. Mr. Sukla, you're looking at me like you wanted to chainsaw a sign down once too. So,
Well, it's still up, by the way.
By the way, that's really amazing. It
James
hasn't come down.
Dietrich is working on a deal with the BLM to move the fence back.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. Move it back, and you don't need a parking lot. You can pull off the road. We'll pull the gravel and ditch it and pull off the
Move
road.
that thing off 20 or 30 feet. And have a,
But if you go measure from the center to the fence, it's certainly not 30 feet. I mean, there's an easement through there, and they're in our easement.
And the other thing is I was told that nobody knows for sure if anybody's even grazing it. I know one of the gentlemen said, well, the Wallace is grazing it, but I'm hearing maybe there's nobody grazing it. So if there's nobody grazing it, then why is there a fence?
Well, there is some legitimacy to the people that were telling you to get out of there because they were going through her gate to get onto that property, and they were traveling on private property.
yeah, the gal's right next door there. Yeah.
So it absolutely is true, and there's no way of getting around it, and there's no place to park, and there is no place to park, and it's a very narrow 8-foot little gravel road, and there's nothing there to park in, and no place to go if you did. So at what point do I start enforcing green road rules and regulations until BLM gives them a place to go?
Right.
So I didn't know quite how to play this.
I know that, I think you're going to have to talk to James, and I know they said he's not here, but he showed me a diagram and said that that's what they were working on about moving that fence back to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, it'd probably move over about 15 feet, guessing, just roughly, and that would give you at least enough room to kind of blade a little ditch in there and put a little place for a stock
If they
trailer.
wanted to make access, they might move it more than that.
But my biggest fear is,
Take it out.
commissioners, is they'll move it back and there's still no gate.
Yeah, there's.
You know, at what point do we put our foot down and say, look what you created here,
Yeah.
and you won't even put a gate in there? So do we cut a gate into it? I don't know.
The diagram had a gate drawn in.
We've had that discussion with them already.
Yeah, okay, so keep me posted, and I'll keep working towards the signs, and that's what this conversation was, where we're at, where we're going. You know, when the order came down to turn it green, well, we've begun the process, and now we're out there working on it, so.
Absolutely.
I think you're just going to have to give it to James because he's got the diagram,
Okay.
and I don't know how far they are in that conversation, but
Okay.
I don't know if we need a survey out there to really determine where the right-of-way
Well,
exists, so we make sure.
if we get to that point, we certainly can, and I'll have Ernie go give me a couple shots off of it. But generally speaking, it looks pretty centered. I mean, the road kind of meanders down through there, but it looks pretty centered.
Pretty close.
Yeah, So, and you know, I don't know, there's gonna be some issues where people park along the road, absolutely. We park along our roads all the time. We just don't park on our roads. So, you know, so if the people are upset, I'm sorry, but their fences are to be 30 feet from the center line, that gives us room for utilities and places to park, even if you pull off on the grass and park there. You know, that's what the rules are. So anyway, we're moving forward on it. So if you hear any conversations about it, we're ordering signs and getting things switched and moving that direction. Good. So other than that, I think I'm starting up over
You're good.
We're good.
You're good. You're good.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Rob.
Do you know when they're gonna do the concrete work there on CC?
You know, James, we're talking to CDOT about that. The way that pavement came up in joints now, the joint is not in the gutter part of that pavement. So we're both thinking that I asked Richard to go out and look at that and see if he can fix the pooling problem at the curve, at the radius, because that's a CDOT issue there with some bollards and some stuff there. We think actually if they fix that, you probably won't have an issue there. So rather than spend $4,800 of our money, theirs and ours, this year we might wait till spring and see how it works, if they can fix that radius. So Richard with Tokar with CDOT was going to run out. Well, he's going to try. He's a busy guy, but he's going to try to get out there with his maintenance guy and see if they can fix that where it doesn't pool, create a duck pond there, so to speak, and get that water off there. And we may not have to do that, but if we do, we've got it budgeted. So, and CDOT's going to pay for the materials, and we'll pay for the labor to do it. So we're at that. Maybe spring now because we want to see just how it works. So, but we, like I said, we were lucky. The joint, so to speak, was actually out of the low area, so it's flowing across good asphalt, and you know it's pretty common to have water do that. If the joint was right in the low spot, then I'd say we're in trouble. We better cut that out and put a drain pan there. So, see what happens. So, okay. Good question. I forgot to bring that up. So, we're done. All right. See ya.
Have you heard any results of the Dolores Snow Ridge Road?
Oh, the Forest Service bladed it. Didn't know that?
I did. It's nice.
Oh yeah,
Turned out nice.
Isn't that nice that they'll show up with their blade on a rainy day and do something? I agree. Yeah, you can, you know, it's a little choppy, but for what he has to work with, he was great. The timing was perfect, and that sure settled the nerves, you know. And I'm very glad that they responded, and they jumped right in there. And they expected us to go up with them, and we said, we're busy. We were taking care of our own roads, you know, and so we did. And then we'll still work with them later this year if the water's in it, and we'll get our walking rolls on it and try to set it again. So I still intend to do something, but they were too early for me. We were busy, so.
There was,
but they did it. That's what counts. So
that took a lot of multiple phone calls that was directed at you that I shifted the phone calls to where they needed to go.
yeah, us on our end too, you know. So yeah, and had a couple of pretty irate people, and
I know all about it.
We discussed a few of them, and we talked about it, and we just discussed about this, that, and the other, and they left with a whole different reason for why we're not there. So, and I'm glad the Forest Service got up and did it. So good.
They probably got a lot of phone calls, didn't
They did?
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah. So anyway, thanks.
Thanks, Rob.
Windows falling out of camper shells, the headlights falling off a brand new pickup.
Shaking them off.
I mean, I had some interesting phone calls. Are you ready, Paul? Yes, sir. All right, come on up.
Morning, Paul.
How's everyone
Hi,
doing?
Paul.
Morning, Paul. Well, we're ahead of schedule. It's different.
Try.
All right. Okay, she's got the bi-monthly report up there. Just a couple of key things. As I'm sure you're already aware, we did get the economic disaster from the state and Small Business Administration. And it actually went out to not just Montezuma County, but all the counties that border us.
From Western Excelsior on that Western Excelsior deal? Wow.
Yeah, so it even affects Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, all the counties that border us was available for that
I'm
as
amazed
well.
how they've got that place cleaned up over there. They have cleaned that place up in a hurry.
So that was a good learning process, great support from the businesses to get their documentation in, and then great support from the state to get that to the governor's office for signature.
Maybe that's the company they need to hire to tear down the high school.
No, I'll tell you what, they didn't mess around. That thing is basically cleaned off. It was cleaned off.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
that was
a mess.
last week. Oh yeah.
I haven't been out there, Al.
Yeah, go by there today.
I'll do that. And then another notable is I have become a certified emergency manager through the Colorado Emergency Management Association. Yeah, that's the letter. It's just a professional certification such as professional certified accountant, safety officer, those
Yeah.
kind of things.
What'd you have to do to get that certification?
It's a document about big that you send in for review. Numerous trainings, there's a lot of community outreach projects, different things that you have to do to complete that. And I'll note that Karen Dixon is about one class away that she'll take in October, November, and then she'll be able to apply for it. And we'll be the only two in the Southwest region other than Trevor Denny.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you.
Let's see. The EOP, I'm going around now. The draft is almost finalized. I'm letting people put their final comments. Going around to meet with all the signatories individually, discussing a lot of items, but the EOP is the biggest part to make sure that they're prepared to do their roles in it, see what kind of training and those type of things that they need to complete those things. Got about 30% of that done so far, and trying to complete all of that by the end of October. It's just getting everybody's busy schedule along with mine to be able to sit down and meet. And then I want to let you know, working with the sheriff, he gave me one of his old Tahoes. So I went from the expedition, had about 180 some thousand miles on it, down to 110. We just got it from black and white to black. So that should serve me for another 5-6 years pretty easy.
What did you do for your expedition today?
It went to senior services. They needed a vehicle to deliver food. So with that miles on it, keeping it within the county, do that should suffice for them for a while as well. And then I have a training plan that I have come up with for the EOC, or actually the MAC group. The EOC is the building, the Emergency Operations Center. The MAC group is the people that's going to operate it. And if you look around the world today and you pay attention to the news, there's a lot of emergency operations centers staying awful busy. We've got a nice facility now, but getting us all, we work together very, very well. Day-to-day operations, our first responders are great, but developing processes to keep track of resources, to keep track of cost, how personnel, accountability, safety, if we have that big event, which we haven't had, and getting everybody in there, developing that is going to be the process, or my goal for the next few years. And in this, everybody's busy, so I try to keep it down to, we're going to do it by quarter, a training or an exercise by quarter over the next 2 years, culminating in November of 2019. And to be honest, I probably expect to have that pushed back a little bit because things happen. But the goal is 2019 with a functional full-day exercise with all of our directors and everybody in there getting hammered. The event I've chosen, and we're going to do it for the seminar, the tabletop exercise, and then finally the functional exercise, is that winter storm where we get hammered and we lose power. Because that's probably our biggest nightmare as far as large-scale event that would reasonably hit our region. Any questions so far? All right. And the last thing is the budget. And budget-wise, I'm asking for the same thing that I got last year. No increases unless we have the cost of living.
Is that 57,370 a cost of living 2% increase?
We don't know yet as of getting ready to shop our health insurance to see if the cost is going to be the same. So at this point, all the budgets that we're presenting have insurance at the same cost.
I was told by an insurance person, Cigna is pulling out individual health care in Montezuma County anyway, and I don't know, I know we're in a Cigna large group, but Cigna's leaving the
Same for individual.
for individual insurance.
Is that what you're talking about, health insurance?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they're going out of our group.
No, I don't think so. I said it was just individual.
But do you, with the circumstances in the past few years, believe that it's going to stay the same?
It'll probably go up, but I have no idea how much.
And I'd at least have 10% to that thing.
Yeah. Have we looked at the CTSI school? Have we looked at that?
Know it?
Yeah. Yeah.
We haven't looked
That's
at
what
it.
okay.
Insurance is crazy.
Oh my God.
Nice for something to get done.
It's a nightmare.
Well, it's just, well, it's going to come to a point where
Where nobody's going to be able to.
afford it. And then what's going to happen?
Yeah. Yes. I don't know. Go down and make a contract with your doctor.
It's crazy. Teresa had hip surgery this year. It's amazing the cost of the way it works.
Yeah, it is. Commissioners, do you have anything, additional questions for Paul?
Would you need to meet with them? Your, emergency operations plan for signature, or is that just at the end?
Yeah, I'm scheduled in December. I hope to have it to present by then.
Okay, December is kind of a really tough month with all the things we have in the budget and tax thing and holidays and things like that. So I just we probably need to look at that and see if we can get it scheduled or
Okay.
January.
As soon as I can get everybody met with, I'll get Melissa. If we keep that in this year, not January's good. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, we have Doug and Rachel. Who's going to come up here and give us the GIS budget presentation.
Well, good morning.
Morning, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Thanks for having us. Another year already?
Still kicking, that's good.
Yeah. We're still kicking along.
Oh, before we get into this, did you have a chance to discuss with them?
Yes, and we have maps, and we'll make sure to bring those. and-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep,
That
we'll
was
bring in
super.
those, and we're going to bring one that's specific to that Bradfield, to the Sage area section that we're looking at, then the overall map as we have it down, initial proposal.
Oh, do you have one that goes all the way to Nuclear?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
what she was asking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the long one layout on pickup trucks.
Good deal.
So, I'm not sure where to start. Looking at a
I
few.
put your things down below because I couldn't make it work very well.
Okay. Oh, perfect. That's great. We can talk about. I guess we'll just talk about it. It's not a whole lot of change. A few things for this salary request here. Bottom line, that is asking for the additional $1,500 remainder that I offered to Rachel based on performance when she was hired here a year and a half ago. And so I would really like to try and fit that into the budget if possible. I really feel like she's done an outstanding job and helped us out with databases, with financial things, just really clearly proven her worth. Then the other thing that I did put into this number right here is requesting a combination, however you want to split it down, a 4% cost of living and merit increase kind of scenario, which is probably something that I'll attempt to ask for every year, understanding that budgets don't always allow for that, but the thinking behind that is that sometimes cost of living increases might be 1.5% to 2% per year, and and I like the thought, at least with employees, of saying, there is something as far as a merit increase and saying, you're worth, a 0.5% increase or a 1.5% increase a year, so that your salary will increase with your experience and value towards the county. So that's how I came up with that figure, understanding that that the county issues those on a broader basis at this time. Fringe benefits I just carried over for Melissa. Operating kept pretty much exactly the same. We did probably will have a little bit of money left over in that this year. That usually covers our expenses. One thing that fortunately we did this year, a couple months ago, is we were able to keep the old plotter going again, versus having to replace it at $8,000 or so. We replaced the whole IQ system and hoping to get a few more years out of that. So we did save that money by returning that in-house.
When that, we don't want it to die, we want it to stay there for a few years. But I mean, when that comes up, that might be a possibility for our capital expenditure. It's going to be over $5,000. So.
Yeah.
How expensive is that thing?
We'd probably be looking at one in the $6,000 to $8,000 range. We love that plotter, so hopefully we can keep it going for a lot longer. It's probably one of the oldest plotters on the West Slope, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But
It's like 13 years.
But it's like it's like a 55 Chevy. Don't get rid of it if you can still keep it running. So I was really happy last time because it was starting to go and
It's
have a
going to
peak.
be hard to, if it was going to move.
We'll it's rather move down from upstairs again, so it's got to go down. So maybe next hour.
We like the altitude down
Yeah, lower elevation, exactly.
Yeah.
We will do it very gently. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll also decide who needs to move that. You won't ask some of them.
Yeah.
There'll be a select
We
select
have some
group.
departments who've offered to, or be asking to help that aren't very gentle.
We're excited about having a bit more space to have the plotter and our large format scanner all set up, because right
And a
now
workspace,
it doesn't
yeah.
have room in Rachel's current office to be set up permanently. As far as maintenance contracts, it's going to be exactly the same as it last year for our Dyess software. Travel dues and training, as you can see, it had been budgeted at the $2,500 level. We obviously haven't been using that. We can go ahead and reduce that to $2,000. What's really happening these days is almost all the training is online. We go to a couple of quarterly meetings on the West Slope here, but we really don't go to your traditional style trainings that involve 1 week and they're $1,600 plus hotel and airfare and everything. A lot of it's online, and you barely have enough time to utilize all those resources. So, we can probably reduce that budget just a little bit, keep that where it is. There won't be an increase. And then I'm going to hand out just a couple things. I know you don't have time to read it, but I'll leave it with you. There's a proposal for a LiDAR data collection countywide that is being coordinated at the state level, but also utilizing FEMA funds. I'm not sure if they still have these funds after the past month's activities, but there was a proposal. They were really focusing on Southwest Colorado, wanting to get this height elevation data, saw a need down in this area, and asked for contributions from local communities. And
Now, what are they doing? What does it do? They want that elevation for what reason? Flooding?
well, flooding is one thing. We did our last flood certification in 2009, I believe. The reason why we were able to do that to such high degree of accuracy is because we had really good data in the Dolores River Valley, obviously one of the biggest threats. The reason we had that data is because the county purchased that contour data back when they had the Dolores River plant, spent I think on order of $200,000 doing that data collection. And so essentially what LiDAR does is it takes an extremely accurate elevation. I think there's 4 points per square foot countywide. So that's kind of end all done deal. We've talked with Joel Lee down at the NRCS, are you guys interested? And he said, yes, we've been looking to get LiDAR forever, because when they're designing their irrigation systems, they have to have a guy out there, 2 guys out there, doing this all across the field just to design it. And if they had LiDAR data, then they could just plug it right into the model and just design away. So it'd be a huge savings, and NRCS is contributing to this effort on a more regional basis. Also, it would make for, quite frankly, more highly accurate wireless coverage maps. Right now we're dealing with old 30-meter DEMs from the 1970s to predict where wireless coverage would be. With this accuracy of data, we're going to know exactly. You know, you can do it heights of buildings, all obstacles. You can model a landscape with trees, without trees. Bottom line is that for that coverage area, countywide, would be on order of $360,000. So we're looking at what is a dollar, contribution to this effort, $1 per $20 or something like that. It's a pretty good deal. They've had this on the table for a couple of years. I did send in a letter of interest, a letter saying that I would request this as part of the budget, and hopefully they'll get that data collection done in 2018. But I'd kind of like to earmark that data. That's all that money. That's all that would go towards, and it would be pretty much an end-all be-all as far as the elevation data countywide. You can design off of it. Companies come in and you say they're interested in a piece of property, and you say, well, here's exactly what this property looks like. They can start engineering their footings right off of it, and it's that good.
I see you spent $7,500 for it in 2015.
I did change this line item right here. That was I'm calling it data acquisition right now. In 2015, that was for our contribution to the city's effort of getting the high resolution imagery. Was about a mile outside, so it goes down past County Road G and then north, so basically out in the county about a mile. That was our contribution towards the $25,000 effort.
That the city did. This was a city project.
Yeah, and that was for aerial imagery.
So it says, to perform more accurate wireless radio coverage maps as well. So then would that information be available to private companies? What are we going to do with it if a private company, what do we do with it?
Well, theoretically we could charge them for that to them. A lot of times we do sell data for the cost of reproducing it. It's kind of the easy way to go. We could sell it and try and recoup some of those costs. We could also just take the stance that there is an economic incentive. As companies and engineering companies all the time are requesting imagery. If a company comes in is interested in the land M sites, well, because of continued data collection efforts, we can say we have 3-inch pixels of imagery, and we have extremely accurate LiDAR for a site, and then you can see that that's interested. That's a huge benefit. Otherwise, I have to send a survey crew down there at probably $2,000 to $3,000 minimum just to survey it, and they can pull it right up, and we see it all the time.
So this information could be then, it could help expand broadband in the county.
Without a doubt, as far as line of sight, it would make extremely accurate line of sight. The 30-meter DEM that we're using right now doesn't see really buildings. It sees shape. So downtown would just be a blob, if you will. This kind of information is going to see alleys and paths and and trees and what have you. And it would definitely help that effort for sure. So we I like to continue to acquire data. That's kind of what our program's all about. It's what a big part of what we do on a daily basis is improving, make sure data is up to date, and sometimes we need to use contractors for that because they're flying in airplanes. And things like that. So I guess the other plotter, we are, one big thing that has changed in the past year is that we are doing addressing. Ever since that position was dissolved, we have been extremely busy. It's added quite a bit of workload to us. We've assigned 125 new addresses in the past year. And those addresses it takes probably a few hours per address by the time we meet with somebody, assign it, get the letter sent out, notify 911, get all the databases up to date, receive phone calls as far as address questions. We're very involved in that process. So I feel that we are doing a significant amount of more workload than we were last year, clearly, with those duties on us. That's essentially, we've absorbed half of the full-time equivalent position. It's going well.
The latest assignment is to figure out addresses as we move across. That's
Move next
what our-
building.
Instead of what addresses will be for each one of the
Oh.
departments.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, we have
Finally.
to change those, you
Do
know.
to ourselves what we do to others.
Yeah, we'll change
All those
that.
business
We'll
cards.
change social services address.
Melissa, are you going to have, I know that you've sent us these budgets, in different documents. Could we have them all in one document before we make a decision?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have this week and we have next week with everybody presenting, so I got to take all those and combine them into one so that you can see what the final looks like.
Okay.
He is one of the ones that's in the general fund. I know that the landfill last week made some decisions in there, but it's self-sufficient and does its own by the fees that they have. So this is part of sharing with everyone else. So yes, y'all get you one that has everything all together.
What's your salary, Pitchell?
Right now, 42.5.
42.5.
42.5. But when I accepted the job, I was going to get a $2,000 raise after 6 months, which I didn't get.
That's something that kind of started way back when I was hired. That was kind of an incentive. And that's something that I kind of like to do. It's like, okay, we bring you on and, at merit-based increase, and Rachel certainly deserved that for sure.
But I want to emphasize that I love this job and I want to stay here for a long time.
It's good that you like your job.
Yeah, I'm buying a house, so. So I want to stay here for, the long haul.
One thing I do want to mention is that we are working very closely, combining with addresses and the way we're storing them in reporting any new development or development that we're finding with the assessor's office. So that's something I think we're both kind of proud of, is that one thing that Rachel did about a month ago is she went back through, as we assign addresses, we'll mark them as a driveway access point that's been created. And then a year later, we'll see if it popped up on imagery and make sure that the assessors have valued that property. So you just found another 30 or 35 through that
buildings,
process
yeah.
of buildings that weren't on the tax roll. So we're reporting well over 100 to the assessors.
And that's what's nice about the imagery. This saves time. You don't have to drive around all these places to see. You can look on the imagery, and compare it to 2 years prior, and see that there is a driveway or a structure there now.
Yeah, I mean, $7,500 if we find a few properties and can, and measure things off, then that pays for itself.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly.
So you guys don't have a vehicle, is that correct?
Right.
We just use the Impala if we need one.
Oh,
Just use one of the carpool,
The other thing, before the budget is for,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that, working with Clint's going out and inspecting driveways. Occasionally we'll have to go look at something ourselves. That all fits within the dues, travel, and training. Mileage.
and the mileage that they pay, doesn't warrant, they don't have enough mileage that sharing gives with everyone else, working out fine.
If there's an emergency, Rachel will run from over here and I'll run from up there and we'll grab it.
Is this LiDAR deal, is that kind of a done deal that you can buy into this? This is your cost share on that LiDAR project with the...
That is a 100% done deal. That's what I said that I'd request, and that's in line with what their agency contributions were. This is the whole Southwest Colorado, so it's primarily FEMA funds, but it's also other agencies like NCS coming in. This, because of the way funding is coming from FEMA, it's for the private land base. It's not for, can't be used on Forest Service or BLM or anything else.
Private land.
It's all private land for the benefit of that. So, for instance, if we need to do something up at, Jackson Lake and model that, or get better flood zones and, the Memphis River or whatever, then we'll be ready to go with the project. Here's the data. If we had to go acquire that data, then we're looking at a pretty expensive proposition for a limited area. So,
But
yeah,
it's
that's
private, so it is private land and not all of Montezuma County.
private
Right.
land only. Private land, that was what I based our area of interest of 600 square miles on at the contribution.
Now, will
rate.
they do their mapping of all the county, but yet we're purchasing just for private land, or do you know that?
They are only going to do the private land base.
Okay.
Because these aren't contributing.
There will probably be some overlap because it's it's an airplane, so I mean it's not going to be a hard edged kind of thing. But yeah, they won't be collecting this and they won't be collecting this. So what, I guess lastly, if we just look at salaries, if you can scroll up just a little bit.
See, under
I
mine.
didn't put individual salaries.
Or not salaries, but just the top of that
The gross
spreadsheet.
salary.
Go to the top of that.
I have to find, because I did read it.
Well, basically, I guess just lastly, what we're looking at is in 2015,
16.
116, yeah. That was a little bit high because we had, I think, some of Loretta's buyout of her vacation time. So that's not really a reflective number. What we had budgeted for 2016 is when Rex left, but that would have been his salary when he came over.
And what happened when he came over is they kept him at the same salary that he was making over there
Exactly.
and bumped him from 35 to 40 hours to leave that salary.
And how much was that then?
That was 48 or 49, somewhere in there, 1,000 a year. Just so that's where you got this number in here. So, and Rex really was the first candidate in this position that we had advanced training, and it's because Rex came over that we were able to upgrade our web mapping site, keep that all in house because of that skill set that he had. He did that all in house, and I think that's something that's important, and that's something that candidates with advanced training have. Other counties, for instance, use something called GeoCortex, very common, and that's a $20,000 implementation and $5,000 per year in maintenance and upkeep on this web mapping package. But we've been able to keep that in-house because we have that skill set.
I know he mapped a lot of trails,
Mm-hmm.
but he'd personally go out there. Are they all mapped? Do you know?
All the trails are mapped, absolutely. We know. I want to say it's at over 95% confidence level now. I think we're the best trails data. But our public-facing website was upgraded, completely upgraded and revamped when Rex was here. Just to point at the skill set that that additional salary did bring to the table. We're requesting this amount here, which is still less than it would have been in 2016. Would be with our request. So it's the last thing I wanted to point out. That we're still under that amount.
All right. Is there a way that us commissioners could see that proposed trail alignment before we have the meeting tomorrow?
Yeah.
Do you have it like on a digital where you could look at it or do we need to could you bring the map to where we could just look at it, or?
We can bring it this afternoon
Okay.
during James's slot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's not coming today. We'll put it on for next week.
How come?
Other items.
So are we going to go into the assessor then? All right, we'll go into the assessor. Hi, Lori.
Morning, Leslie.
Or Leslie.
How are you?
I'm good.
Hi.
Good.
Leslie.
Maybe today. I don't know. Lori's okay.
Where did this come from? Which county? So they have all of this going on with Morris County.
Carmen. Yeah, Carmen worked with us and,
Oh, so Dolores
Okay,
County.
that's fine. Okay.
Dolores County.
yeah, it came from San Miguel County.
Sorry, Lori, this is different.
Oh.
Or Leslie.
Hey, Larry Don, let me introduce you to
I mean,
Leslie.
Leslie.
I know.
Nice to meet you.
I keep saying Lori.
So where do I? So I kind of didn't have a real good mold to go off of, so I kind of revamped the whole thing.
She's one of the, in a situation where, we've given, when the accounts were set up for the county, they made 5 or 6 that they gave to every department. And there are lots of departments that are totally different. We've slowly added a lot of categories to these. When I came in, people had about 6 different line items, so we slowly added.
Okay.
The previous assessor would code things here, there, or wherever there was money or this or that. So it was really hard to get a feel for what the actuals were. So I did give her 3 years worth of history, and that's what she started with on this budget.
So you kind of rearranged this stuff.
I did. I took some stuff out that I didn't, like the repairs and maintenance was being used on top of the fleet management costs. I know we have some windshield replacements and some oil changes and stuff in there that didn't need to be. I mean, that would be a fleet charge. So I took the repairs and maintenance out for our vehicles. I took out the software because Jim McLean's taking care of all of those contracts now. I don't have any of, anything of that going on. And then I have our professional services this year will be hopefully a lot smaller since we don't have our attorneys in Grand Junction this year. Those fees that we have up there currently are for Jerry Wisdom's yearly contract that we have with him to do our oil and gas personal property. And then Mary Ellen's thinking she might do 2 or 3 audits by the end of this year. So for the kindergarten.
So that
that
includes
includes her stuff. Mm-hmm.
That's in 18, doing 2 or 3 in 2018.
Well, she's going to get them done by the end of this year, so probably wouldn't bill us until next year. It might not even, so I just kind of put some in just in case I didn't know for sure what's going to happen.
I wonder what this is asking a question for way far back, but what the assessor's request were as far as those legal fees before the Kinder Morgan lawsuit, because I know we've spent a ton on that, but that started a decade ago. About before I came, Bob Slough wouldn't talk to the assessor or the sheriff or the clerk, and I've kind of tried to keep the same approach, but I cheat a little bit and kind of meet with all of you guys. But I'm just wondering, I know for the sheriff, it's specifically that they do still sometimes need to contract out with Mike Green they use sometimes, but it might be worth looking at a long time ago to see how they, because I don't want you to be high and dry when all of a sudden you get $10,000 that you need and not have it in your budget. So you might want to look way back then to see.
I don't know if we have that data.
You don't? Okay.
Oh,
I
really?
have budgets that are just the ones that Ashton prepared, and I don't know if there's any that we have for,
Pre-Kinder Morgan.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, you can play by ear.
And I know that our county system only starts in 2012. So previous to that, I don't even know what the name of the system was before, so.
Yeah.
Leslie, you mentioned your maintenance contracts. What's that going to include?
So our maintenance contracts this year, Jim McLean has suggested, I think he might have brought it up to you last week on his, when he had his time, but we have the OSA printer scanner that scans in and prints all of the large maps for the county. We house all the maps. So when they get brought up from being recorded, we have to make copies, send copies to realtors, that's part of our job. The one we currently have is no longer able to be updated. It's on its last leg.
So we're not building parts
No,
for it
it's,
anymore.
yeah. And Jim can't even keep it. I mean, it's on its last, I think it's on 2006 or something. He said there's no way to update it to 2010 windows or, it's done.
And how much is it?
It is $16,750, and that's to purchase it, so we would own it.
And is that in that maintenance?
That's in the
contract?
maintenance contract. I didn't have a capital fund or anything, so I just put it there. And then the other part of the maintenance contract is we're doing a new copier for the office. Our Xerox contracts have been good.
What do you think the difference, because we just had this conversation with our GIS, and theirs, they said to replace theirs, it was $8,000.
I can get.
I wonder what the
refurbished
difference is
one.
between the two printers.
Well, a refurbished one is $9,000 or $9,500.
I'm not sure if he was talking about a brand new one or not.
Is yours color? Is this color?
It scans color. It only prints black and white.
And I know Doug's will print color, because I mean, all these maps that we have.
Yeah.
His is a plotter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
Ours
his is a scanner.
Yeah, ours has to scan it into the system because we have the database.
Oh, so they're they're
I think they're
different.
different machines.
Two different machines.
This one, Leslie's will scan and print, and I think,
Because we have a whole database of all the maps too in our system that, people can go online and print them off and that kind of stuff too. So we have to be able to scan into the files. But, I mean, this is workable.
Yeah.
But we
I just wanted
we
to.
definitely need to start looking at something new because
It's now or sooner or later. huh?
it's been babied as long as it can be babied, I think.
Okay.
And it's been there longer than I've been there, so that's got to be a while. But so that's my maintenance contracts. Miscellaneous, there was like $1 in there for the 2017 budget. I just put 5,000 in just in case something happens. That would be nice to have a
We budgeted $1
yes.
just to keep that line item maybe from disappearing. I don't know.
And dues and travel. So the 2 new appraisers are going to be doing all of their training and licensing this year. So that's a pretty big one there. Also in the salaries, when they were hired on, and Zane also, once they all three get their licenses, there was going to be an increase in their pay of $6,000 for their education. So that's included in the total there.
How
Of
come
the
fleet goes
200.
from, I'm sorry, Leslie,
Go ahead.
you can call me Bill.
Go ahead, Bill.
How come it goes to 6,000 from 4? Is that
4
standard?
is only year to date, that's through July 31st.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, okay.
And it
Oh, I
was
see, it's the same.
3,000, and then it got bumped up to 6,000, so I just carried over the full
Okay,
6,000.
I got you.
The 6,000 has to do with replacement, it's putting in replacement costs for 2 vehicles so that eventually, and the cost of how much they drive, put into that mileage fee.
That was a very interesting thing that Doug brought up in his GIS presentation, that they found 100 and some properties that were not on our rolls.
Crazy, huh? I know.
Our sucker didn't get out in that city.
No.
That's gonna pay for you.
Can't pay for my new printers here.
So this does have it, in 2018, predictably, all three of the other appraisers will finish their coursework.
And the license.
So that's $6,000 per person, won't be $6,000 for the whole year. It just depends on when
They come in.
for that licensing has, so it has the budget in there for.
It's larger than it would be, yeah. Because if they don't get them until September, October, that's when.
Did you say that's per person? That's what the training
Yes,
costs?
per person.
Leslie, what were your thoughts on, and I might have missed it, getting a commercial appraiser? Can we do that? Or,
Well, we can. Talking to the state, I can do it myself.
oh, you can?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Is that what you want to do, or did you want to use one of your employees?
I'll try it. I think they're gonna be overwhelmed trying to get caught up with what's going on, so I thought I'd see,
Okay,
if I
so
feel like I can do a good job.
I just didn't know if you had considered that in your budget
I
as
didn't.
far as, because we're either going to contract that out, or we need one of you all to do
Yeah.
it.
And since being the assessor, you don't have to be a commercially licensed appraiser, you can just.
Because you're the
Because,
elected
mhm,
assessor.
exactly. So that'll save some money on that
You feel
end.
pretty comfortable in that, Leslie? I mean, yeah. You've
Yeah.
been around that.
We've all been
awful
doing
lot,
it the whole
haven't
time
you? You've
anyways.
been doing it anyway. Nothing new to you.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. So we'll just, and there's lots of stuff on that end too that need to be picked up and looked at. So, once I get everything brought up to speed, I'm gonna start trying to figure all those out. I know there's a lot of new buildings and stuff, new businesses that have not been picked up, so.
We just need somebody to do commercial.
Mhm. Yep.
Can I change the subject for half a second? There was something about the reappraisals, the dates of when that information goes out. Is that October?
We're mailing the notices on Thursday the 5th. And then our special session is the 20th.
So people get them mailed, and then after that, I'll contact those that requested BOE hearings. Should I probably be doing that maybe on the 10th?
You could.
I mean,
Which month was it?
Well, this month,
October.
October this month. Yeah.
so that we can check and see if any of them, because we asked them to.
We want to give them first rights, yes.
I'm just trying to think of that timing. I couldn't remember when that goes out, so I will contact the ones that
I've already
have already
submitted a request.
requested a BOE hearing and see if they
We're
still want to.
Yeah. Well, we got them all stuffed. We're actually stamped, ready to go.
Good. Good for you.
That was 11,740 notices,
Really?
And that's on residential.
commercial and ag.
The whole spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
What did you miss? What didn't you do?
Oh, we did them all.
I know, but I mean, is there
Oh.
another category? That,
No, not on our revaluers.
Okay.
We do oil and gas and sand and gravel, all that's separate. So this is just a whole thing over again.
A lot of work.
And postage is a little different too on here. So from what I could tell is the intervening years when we didn't have a reval, there was no postage included in our budget. So
you didn't
know-
mail anything?
I guess not.
Yeah, good.
So I put 1,500 there, figuring if I needed extra, my miscellaneous could kick in and take care of some of that. I have no idea. Kind of starting over on that. But and then two in that 8,500 and 9,297 from 15 and 16. I think that includes the price to have our notices actually printed out too. That's not just postage.
I think that's a combination, and I don't know if Sherry does it that way. Is yours, when they, like the tax bills, do they give you the cost of printing and postage together? It's a package deal?
Usually the printing is separate.
And
Postage and mail.
But do you pay one vendor?
You pay one vendor, yes, but I think it's split out to where you could split it out in your
I was
budget
just
too.
curious, I mean, if it was one vendor, it probably all got put in postage.
Mhm.
That would be my
do you
guess.
use a local vendor? Do you know?
No, we don't. We mail them. It's kind of they do those postcards, and it gives us the postcard price too for postage. We don't have to pay the full 40 whatever to use.
Because I know Southwest Printing does all that, and they mail them. They're all one shop, stopping. I just wondered if you guys have ever been.
No, I haven't. They have to be able to receive our information too. And that's,
The data.
we did local, we did local this time on our printing, and it was kind of hard. Because they have to, I had to basically pre-print all of the stuff and save it to a file, and then just save it on a thumb drive and take it to the printer.
Which printer did you use?
We use Cortez Copy.
Well, the difference is Southwest Printing has $1 million printer in their building, and Southwest and Cortez Copy probably has $100,000. So I would suggest reaching out to Southwest Printing.
Okay, we can give them a try.
See if they're able.
Is that fairly new, or is that the one that?
Yeah, they came from Germany just a couple of years ago.
We may as well check it out. We
I
can
mean,
keep,
Oh, yeah.
if you can keep the
Local
business
guy.
local, then
Oh
we
yeah,
should.
we can definitely look at it.
If it's not feasible.
Because they have to be able to break all of the stuff up, and the way it prints it out is a DAP file, so everything just stops at a period, and then they have to be able to pick it up and put it in the right spot. So, I mean, if they could do it, yeah, I would be more than willing to check it out.
Check them out.
And then the other, like I said, our contract on our Xerox machine is up in February, and I think we're going to go with I can't remember what gems we were going to get. Konica?
Konica
Because that's what
Minolta,
everybody,
Konica
more
Minolta.
everybody in the county has those, and he's able to keep them up online
I
a
actually
little
have a
easier.
meeting with him on Wednesday.
Oh, so you're just trying to keep them all the same?
Yeah.
So
And actually, it is a better price. Our lease on the Xerox was 5 years. This is only a 3-year lease, so it's actually saving us some money on that too. So, other than that,
It's kind of nice to have a local person. I mean,
Sure it is.
oh yeah,
Does
when we need help,
Oh, boy.
something happens, we have to wait 2 or 3 days.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
sounds like your budget's going to be, I mean, it's like a brand new budget.
It is.
And it's going to be hard to really, I mean, you're taking the best guess you can, but who knows what's going to happen this first year.
exactly.
Okay.
There's
Yep,
no
that's
history.
kind of, yeah, I don't have any good history to go off of.
so there's history, but it's confused history.
What's your relationship like with Mark Vanderpool? Can you call him up and ask him about legal fees? Okay.
No, I'd prefer not.
Okay.
You guys can if you want, but
All right, thank you.
you're
Leslie.
welcome.
Thank you.
Bill says thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Matt.
yeah, Willie
Nice
says
to
he
meet you, Bill.
appreciates
I
it.
deserve that. Hi, Sherry, come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sherry. How are you today?
Good.
Good.
T-shirt Firewise will be right on time.
They said they were going to try to come early. But we've got Sherry and we've got Kim. And John and I can always fill in.
Yep. I'm ready.
Okay.
I didn't change very much from last year. I would like a little bit more, well, in the permanent salaries that Melissa gave us that little increase, so I put that's in there. The operating expense, I would like a little bit more money in that.
What's caused your, what's your operating, what's pushing your operating up, or you,
Publications.
publications?
And I probably didn't put enough in there, but
I mean,
that's a big portion.
Newspaper publications.
and then is that for your tax sale mostly? Is that the biggest publication you
Well,
have?
Foreclosures.
We do the foreclosures.
Foreclosures get charged out.
To
So
the-
if you're on a
okay, so every
foreclosure,
cl-
if you were being foreclosed on, you cover the cost of that.
I got you.
So it is an increase. Did they tell you that it's going to cost $2,000? Where did I see that?
3,000.
$3,000 more?
Well,
Let's go that
it
direction.
actually went up from $10 to $17 per
Ad?
per parcel.
Oh,
Per parcel.
Hmm.
Of course, we collect some of that back from the people, but we have to pay it.
Yeah, that's like a 75% increase.
Yes.
She keeps coming and saying, tell me that this is not a local newspaper. And I said, I can't make that determination.
I keep asking
Yeah.
because they have their little office here, but it's printed in New Mexico.
It's getting to be less and less local, there's no question. The news.
Mm-hmm.
Not local.
And so if we didn't print it, I could hang it hang it on the,
Window.
3 different places in the county on bulletin boards and put it on the website.
So she has the publication for the tax sale. She has twice a year the treasurer's report, the scheduled disbursements, the 6-month salary for 6
That
months.
went up.
And to compare, we have our monthly accounts payable. We pay $902 to print our accounts payable, and they kept it at that price because they said they would honor that to the next year. It's going to go up to $1,200 per month for us, what we pay. And we have 2 salary, a June salary, and then in February we have to print annual salaries of employees. So we'll have 14. Admin has 14 things that we have to publish. So
You're talking 15, 20,000.
hers, when she does her tax sale, because it's $70 per parcel, it depends on if it's a good year, bad year. I mean, it'd be nice to have a smaller tax sale, but
Yes.
they're repeat offenders who are
Well,
going
there's
to
a
be there
lot
every
of
year.
people deliberately, they don't want to pay it until close to the end of the year.
But once
And that's
you have
okay.
that, once you have that in the
Except we need it
publication, though,
to be distributed whenever they get paid.
once it's in that publication, though, do they have to pay those additional fees?
Yes.
So I've seen some that
Yeah.
mineral leases that were like $1.95, and they're paying
Plus 17.
$25, $30 for $2 by the time the fees get.
Yeah.
But
What are your part-time salaries, Sherry? I didn't know you had part-time employees.
there were part-time. Part-time. Is there part-time?
It's on this description, it's on the last page of her presentation.
Oh, that's
that
the
is
public trustee.
That's the trustee.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I jumped.
So that's actually.
That's her,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that one's because that's not a full-time
I was a little
position.
bit concerned when we talked to the assessor and the clerk's office that they're on with the new software that we bought from the assessor's office, that they've incorporated in that, what's it called? What's that?
Tyler.
Tyler. Are you using Tyler or
We've
you?
been on Tyler for a long time.
I think there's something like an addition.
No, there was something that they- yeah.
links.
Oh,
yeah.
no, we don't. Let's see, we can see the assessor stuff. But that's on the website, I think. It's not part of our system. We can go on the website and see it.
I thought that there was some kind of
There's-
communication or tie-in where the assessor could directly access to you, and it was going to be
They can
efficiency and time
change
saving and,
addresses. And they can roll that down to us immediately.
Kim, can we ask you how the clerk ties in with Tyler? I don't.
What we do is when we record it, then the assessor has access to look at whatever we recorded.
Okay.
They go in there and look at that. So whatever documents we recorded.
So that's what your part is the clerk is recording documents, the assessor is valuing properties.
And then I can go on the website and go in there and see the clerk stuff too. but it's not.
Yeah, there's some piece that's not connected
Right, I'm
somehow.
not informed enough.
I'm not either.
I
I'm-
know, but there was some piece that I think our IT department said that you need
You
to
were-
click a switch and it'll link them, and you haven't done that or something. I don't know what it is exactly.
Well, I think that we did that in the beginning, and we're actually working in the previous year as far as tax information, and the assessors were working in the current year, so it kind of messed us up. So we went back to the way it was, where it doesn't change us immediately.
Okay, I mean, I'm not following.
I'm not
everything
either, I'm not.
exactly, but,
Well, like they changed an address or a name, say they changed a name on somebody's, well, these people come in, the other people that have to pay the taxes in my system, and if they've changed it up in the assessor's office and we've let it happen in our office, then
then it screws
that
it up.
person isn't even showing up on our system.
Can you have that conversation with probably Jim McLean and make sure he understands what your needs are, and just make sure that we're using it the most efficiently as possible as far
Sure.
as integrating it?
Yeah, 'cause
See
that was,
if-
that
see
was
if
supposed
we-
to, yeah.
Should be doing something different, but the names and addresses are an issue.
So when property changes hands, which happens all through the year, you
I
pay
don't
taxes
want
on
that information
the
immediately.
prior year. So what's happening?
Previous
What you're
people
gonna
have
send
to
out
pay.
in January is anybody who owned that property in 2017, is that correct?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for instance, the difference of my father-in-law passing away, I mean, it's still within the family, so it doesn't make
Right.
it. That happened in 16, November of 16, so the tax bill for 17
It's still
was given to the people of record at that time. And now this year, he won't be on the tax bill because his name is no longer on that. Is that correct?
Recorded documents.
Well,
It's worked through the system.
I'm just not sure, but I know when that Tyler, that was part of the sales pitch to us, is that it was going to connect the treasurer's office with the assessor's office. It's going to make for more efficient information sharing back and forth between those departments, and from what I was told from the assessor side, that's not happening. So
We just want to make sure that
Wanna-
we're using it as
right,
efficiently as
as
possible,
the-
as integrated
right.
to whatever extent we can utilize it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would probably just have that conversation with IT, make sure they understand what you need. And make sure
I'll
that
get
they
with
can-
Leslie too and IT.
okay.
So in a nutshell, this is her treasurer's treasurer's
Is this with a
budget.
2% salary increase for employees?
Yes. And her trustee budget is,
I didn't change anything from the previous year, I don't think.
Something $400 was changed.
the fringe benefits.
Fringe benefits.
And that may be, because the fringe benefits, the way that they calculate, because she has a salary that's split between the two.
Mhm.
I think that difference between that 26 and the 1581 is more in line with what actually gets charged there. Does that make
So
sense?
I'd have already told everybody, and I ignored it, but I'm curious, so my friend benefits too, that when you give the numbers, increase just a small amount, why is that? Is it insurance? Is it?
Well, okay, so the benefits are based on health insurance plus a percentage of what your salary. So if your salary goes up $100, it's for FICA and the 5% of retirement. So most of it's 12.65%. So if you go up $2,000, everything goes up just a skosh.
Right.
If there's $2,000 more in salary, there's $2,000 more for retirement and Social Security matching.
So some of
So
it's
it's just-
taxes and.
Yeah,
uh,
it's small,
right,
but
plus the county's
it does.
It keeps adding up, doesn't it?
And I don't have a vehicle, and I don't use a vehicle.
Mm-hmm. That's
Do you ever
your,
go
that's to
to-
your benefit.
Do you ever go to any trainings or something in Renfrew?
I didn't go this past year. I didn't go to any, but we're gonna need to go this next year. We are, so I should use
Some of that
some of
25. And so there are county vehicles available for her
Oh, yeah.
if she uses on occasion, if she needs to go to Denver, you know. The Impala, the Equinox, you know, if it's in the wintertime, the Suburban, whichever way. There are vehicles available.
Well, that's what
So you
they're
don't-
for.
Yeah, that's what the pool is for.
Any other questions, commissioners?
I don't have.
Thank you, Sherry.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we got the toughest character so far.
Who we got now?
We got Kim.
What? Okay.
You know, yeah, they totally kicked out the trail on this.
I have, that's just what they sent to me just today.
Well, we'll just bring it ourselves. Say, here's what
But
we're
this is
bringing.
what Morris County, but we
That's all
Sorry,
right.
no,
No,
sorry.
that's good.
He's getting us distracted.
That's okay. Distract away. That's all right by me. So, first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was with the 3 departments, we've got some things going on in each of the departments that you probably should be aware of. In recording, we have, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, we have that microfiche reader printer.
Yeah.
And I'm in the same boat that Leslie is. That is no longer able to be repaired. I can't get parts for it. So we pray and hope that that is something that we don't lose, because we actually have counties coming to us that no longer can get theirs fixed because
read
ours
their
is still working.
Data. They
They'll
bring
bring-
their microfilm.
They'll bring their little cards.
Hey, I know where there's a machine in the bottom of the Justice Building. There's a microfilm reader, but it's in the dead pile, so I don't know if it works or not. But there's a machine down there.
Yeah.
But what do you got to do? You got to
I think we're going to have to try and
Transfer.
replace it.
Or can you change that microfiche stuff
Over to something else, right? We could digitize it, which is going to be a whole big thing.
Big deal.
But at this point, we are just babying that machine the best we can and trying to take really good care of it. So it's just something that you guys need to be aware of.
Do you think, Kim, it might be wise, knowing where that's at, to start trying to plan for that digitizing? Because that's where it's all going to go eventually anyway. I mean,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and I know it's inexpensive. I know it's a couple
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yeah, you're talking a whole
Deal.
lot of money for that.
Yeah.
And we have had some people stop by and talk to me about that and given me some quotes and stuff. And they've even come by and talked to Melissa a couple times. But
I've seen
it's-
them at CCI.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
guy's always there.
Yeah, and so that is something that I thought we should probably talk about in the future to get
Yeah.
that.
I think
We
that-
have had some title companies coming in and actually creating some of their own digitized stuff,
Mhm.
and then they'll give us a record of that so that we've got it
You've
as
got
well
it,
as they
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So,
So is that, I can't recall, a couple $100,000.
yeah, it's 250. It's going to be a big chunk.
But
of
that's
money.
just to get what you've recorded digitized. And we've got records, and I don't know what needs to be digitized. I know that the treasurer
Oh,
has
from
a bunch of documents that I saw in the safe that I don't know what we actually need to have.
Well, and that's the quote that we originally got was just for the books. That was not with the microfiche. That was just what's in the actual books.
Wow.
So,
Why does that cost so much? I feel like it's just manual labor. I mean, I don't feel like there's some sort of huge expertise associated with it. Like you need to pay somebody minimum.
I think what you have to do is, when you scan it, but you take a box at a time, you send it to them, they scan it, and then I don't know how they name it.
I'm not sure if they actually take it or if they come
Come
to
here.
us.
I think they come here to you.
And-
There was the one guy, you send it to them,
Yeah,
but
I don't know if I've talked to him, but some of our records are so old, they actually have to have protective gloves and, I mean, to protect them.
to hold the documents.
They're not allowed to touch them with their bare fingers and
They're, they're historical documents. You know?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
So that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. The
Do you
good thing,
don't have, do you have that in here or no?
no,
Okay.
that is not included in that. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is on the same lines with that, the state with our, and I can't think of what the word is, technology fees. We've been getting some technology fees built up, and at this point, we have some grant opportunities to purchase new equipment for the recording department. So I'm going to be looking into that and seeing what I could use those grants for, and if that happens to be like a microfiche, or if that happens to be for digitizing, I'll see what we can do with that.
And that's this fund right here. As you see it, it's got money that's budgeted here because they're collecting, depends on, it's so much per each document that's recorded. Sometimes it's 407, sometimes it's 365, sometimes it might be 598, or, you know, that slowly they have accumulated around this $36,000 that they have to charge people, but it can only be used for this. So she's
Specific.
figuring out what this is.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about.
Would it be cheaper to hire an employee to do the digital,
Digitize
If you
that.
had your own equipment, you have
Yeah,
to
your own
purchase your own equipment.
I wonder what that consists of. I mean, it sounds like every department needs this done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, in a perfect world, in a magical thing, we thought about I mean, it would be a good public service to taxpayers, you know, their old documents, their own family documents and things like
For
that.
a fee, we'll digitize them and, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking of old, even VCR, you know, your old videos and that kind of stuff. But it takes a lot of equipment for that.
But you realize that, so every year we put it off.
Yeah, and we
The
get further
bigger that
behind.
this problem gets,
We get further behind.
and the more expensive it gets.
And I think we're, especially like with our minutes, because we're now scanning them, and I've got a record of that, and Jim's got a record of that, I think we're kind of curbing that in some ways, but you still have all of the recorded documents. And right now, gosh, our electronic recordings we probably average at least 25, 30 a day for electronic recordings as opposed to in person. So that's going to
So are you digitizing that stuff now? Are you in the place where you can digitize what you're doing today?
It's already scanned,
Already
and
scanned,
the
yeah.
electronic ones, yes.
Yeah.
Those are scanned
So
documents.
we're not building more onto this, it's just the backlog that needs to be caught up.
But the more and more outdated this technology gets, I think
Yeah.
we're probably right, the more expensive it's going to be in the future. I mean, you guys could kick it down the road to the next set of commissioners, but it is going to be a problem all the time
Yeah.
that at
Yeah.
one point needs to get addressed.
That's how
And,
we did it.
you know, and how big of a catastrophe is it when the machine does break and everybody else's machine has broken? Right now, some people are coming to us to use ours, and then are we just out of those documents? And you know, how big of a liability is that, or how much do we care?
So that is something that I thought I would bring to the table for at least a discussion for next year.
Okay, I think we need to take a hard look at that.
But for all of the
All of
it's
the
not
departments.
just
Yeah.
the
The
clerk,
treasurer, the clerk,
whoever has
All,
documents.
even GIS, I mean, because,
Some of their maps and.
yeah, if you guys had that digitized, you may have something with the Dolores Merwood Road that would have fought, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, but just a thought.
The one piece that I don't understand though is as we digitize certain things, you have to have someone smart enough to look at the document, to name it something that means something,
Means
instead
something
of,
to find- yeah.
when you scan things, it gives it this code, this name, that's code, 26 letter.
Yeah.
SKNB 8844.
Well, you can name it whatever you want.
But the person reading it has to type in that so that you can actually find it, you know? So it
We didn't necessarily rename stuff. I mean, however they have it organized in the microfiche, you can use that same naming system and just
if it has,
transfer
but
it over.
but it's making sure that someone puts that in, you know? I don't think it's as easy as just scan and it knows what to name it.
No,
I don't
think so
understand,
either.
you know, one at a time, and when one starts and one stops, the difference between what was recorded when Kim sold her property to me and when you sold your property to Commissioner Sukla, you know, when one stops and when the other starts. So there's some brains in that I don't know how that computer knows.
But I kind of think that when they do that, they have a set standard of how to name that stuff. I mean, I think that's kind of a set
Surely they
standard.
gotta have some kind of
Yeah, statewide.
cataloging identification so that you know where to go and what
Right.
to find.
Right, I think it's kind of a,
I think if they explained it to us, to see if that fits for what Kim needs, to see if that fits for what Sherry needs, to see if that fits
Right.
what Leslie needs.
Right.
Because just a document doesn't do any good. We can scan it, but then you gotta look through 10,000
How do you go
pages.
find your fish when somebody comes in and say, hey, Kim, I need to look at
in
Whatever.
most cases, they're required to get some sort of a number from the assessor, because the assessor will have the last date it was recorded, a booking page, and then that leads us to a file, and we fill out the card and we take it to the fish reader and they look at it and decide whether they want a copy of it or something. So basically, this would be and we actually have a whole extra set of these cards out at the armory, because the last time when we did those cards, they made 2 sets, just in case we had some sort of an issue with one, we would have a backup. So we could actually have those being digitized while we're still using these.
What was it that Naomi did? Here.
She scanned in all of our old minutes. And maybe some other stuff too. I mean,
So
we
all
have
the
a
ordinance-
ton of documents,
I mean-
ordinances, resolutions.
From
Yeah.
the beginning of time.
I mean, we have binders, thousands and thousands of pages that she did, and then she text recognized them. Which you just need Adobe Acrobat Professional to do that, so that you can do searches of them.
So if
she
we
had
found
a-
the right person, we could probably do this.
It's like menial labor. I mean, it's it's nothing. You don't need super high brain power to do it. We're scanning.
You just
text
have to pay
recognizing,
attention.
The other thing I wanted to let you know is we have a couple public computers in the vault for public research, and they're getting, and I'm sure that's something that Jim's probably already talked to you about, that he feels like some of our computers need replacing, but those
You
two,
did talk to us about.
those 2 in particular are having some issues, and so that's one thing.
And I don't know if his schedule is to, I don't want to say hand-me-down, but, it's kind
Transfer
of like,
from one-
like vehicles, if it gets the newest one and then this transfers and then,
It could
ones
be.
that won't do what Doug needs it because he needs his to go faster and greater and all that kind of stuff, and his transfers to there. I don't know
And
what
that
Jim
could
has a
be-
plan for that, or
Yeah. Those, sometimes those are really, really busy, and then other times it's really quiet. So public information or public research is sometimes, especially there for a while when the oil was really booming here, we probably had 10 or 15 people in our vault daily doing research.
is there
Wow.
also one at the assessor's office
I
that
don't
they can? There's something about that screen that they have on that desk right outside the.
Yeah.
I think there's one in the assessor's office too, a public computer.
Yeah.
Do we
It's
need-
for the bell is for the.
for the handicap accessible, but do we have somebody who will respond to that?
I think LeeAnn usually does.
So the other thing with the recording department is, and it's not really recording, it's liquor license. You guys were talking about publications earlier, and every time we have a new liquor license where we have to put a public notification, it costs the county $200 to put that publication in. And we don't have a whole lot of new liquor licenses, but last year we've had 4 or 5. So, and that's, I've never included that.
$100 a pop.
So I'll take 100.
Yeah, I've never included that in our budget before.
Do they pay for that?
Yeah,
They pay a portion.
how much do they pay about 200?
It depends on the type of liquor license. Some of them are anywhere from $500 to $1,000, depending on what type of a liquor license it is. Whether it's a lodging and liquor license, or whether it's a restaurant liquor license, or
Retail.
brew pub.
Does that money go to you?
No, most of it goes to the state. We get a portion of it, but most of it goes to the state.
And does that come back to you from the state in the clerk's fees?
No, I think we take we keep what we're going to keep and then send them the rest.
And then you deposit that with Sherry in the clerk's fee, so
Yeah.
it's just part of that lump sum. I will say, I can't remember in the revenue, but I think Kim collects around $500,000 in clerk fees from all the different stuff that she
That we do.
does. Now, does that include is that SO for the specific ownership on license plates?
The clerk fees are part of the breakdown of the license plates, the registrations and stuff like that. We get a percentage of it, they get a percentage of it, and then Sherry, we give all that information or all those funds to Sherry, and then she divides it to like the hospital districts and all that stuff. So, but yeah, that's what it is.
So the actual clerk fee that, you know, the $2.50 or $3.75 or whatever it is on your license plate, the clerk fees goes to one. The SO, specific ownership tax, gets split out to all the taxing entities. So it's, when you see your actual license plate, I don't know if there's 15 different
At least.
A lot of
fees that you pay, then all those go to all those different places.
And the one that we do get to keep is the clerk fee.
The clerk
$2.
fee that she does, I mean, it amounts to, the volume of what they do is around
You
$500,000.
get to keep all that money, that 500,000.
And that,
She does.
well, and
fund,
that kind of offsets that 620, you know.
Yeah.
There's a big portion of hers that she doesn't eat into property
Right.
taxes because
Right.
80% of it comes
We're gonna make
to
her
what
one
she
of
does.
those funds like the landfill. We're gonna make her
Everybody's-
yeah.
Could you increase that fee so that it would cover the cost of?
Only thing is you have to go through legislation to
Legislation
get
to
those
do
fees changed. On to motor vehicle. The motor vehicle will be implementing that new program that I was telling you guys about in August of 2018. I believe that the only cost that it's going to come to the county would be the training. The one thing I need you guys to be aware of at that point is the training is going to be like a 3-day training, and they're wanting us to close the office for 3 days so that all of my clerks can go to that training.
And they have to go out of town?
It's in Durango.
Can they do that over a weekend? Will they do that over like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
I would love for them to. I don't think that they will though, because
They've
they're
already
doing-
set it up?
Yeah, and it's bringing in like La Plata County and Dolores County, and all of these counties are coming to the same training. So, but yeah, I would love that. I would
Well,
love
that
that.
would make sense. I mean,
Yeah, so you can't even go to another clerk. I mean, you would be
stuck
in town.
For those 3 days. Yeah, and then they will have another 1-day training for the management part, for the new bookkeeping process of this new program. So, but the nice thing is we're not having to send them to Denver for 3 days and pay for motels and dinners and the whole thing. Let's see.
when's that gonna happen, Kim? Do you know? Have they given you a date?
The training, I think, is in July. In July of next year. The renewal, the one thing that on the motor vehicle, the postage, the renewal cards, we used to send out our renewal cards in-house, but now the state sends those out, and it's running us about $1,200 a month to have those cards printed and mailed out from the state. That's our portion of it. So that's gone up a little bit, but that just means we have more cars in the county. So that's the big part about that. Can you go to the election? Oh, before we go, salaries, that includes the 2%. And maintenance contracts, I used to have a contract with, on copiers. I had 2 separate copiers. For some reason, I had 2 separate contracts. We've combined those, and I think it's going to be maybe $300-400 a year. Is all.
What's that under, Kim?
Under maintenance contracts.
Okay.
Postage is going up. The reason I actually I kept postage the same, didn't I? Yeah. And dues, training, and travel. The one thing I wanted to let you know on that those dues, training, and travel is the election training. And our dues for traveling to conferences have gone up from anywhere from $300 to $400 a person for registration.
Cool.
So if I take anybody or if I go, that's just for
Just the registration fees.
That's not the motel or the food.
Kim, that $2,200 that you got rid of for maintenance, does that not include rental of your equipment, like copiers and those types of things?
Yes.
So that's about what it was before I got rid of mine.
I actually purchased this new copier.
So that's the difference. Okay.
It was cheaper for me to purchase it and just pay for the maintenance contract.
For sure. Okay.
So
Good move.
that's what I did. Okay, elections. Elections. First of all, let me just tell you what we've got scheduled for next year. We've got 2018 election schedule. The first thing we're going to have is municipalities. All 3 of the municipalities have contacted me. They want me to conduct a coordinated election for them on our new equipment.
And that is in May, correct?
Is it April or May?
Yeah,
I have to look at, yeah,
In
it's
that
in the spring. And then directly right after that are special district elections. I have been contacted by special districts to talk about one, but at this point I have not been notified that any of them want me to participate.
But they pay for those, don't they?
They pay for, yes, most of it, yes. Yeah.
Let's get them to pay for all of it.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who's coordinating with it. If the state's coordinating or whatever, not with the municipalities, but I divide it amongst whoever's participating. The new thing this year is going to be the primary in June. Primaries in the past have been basically major parties, but with what we voted in last year, we're going to have the opportunity for unaffiliateds to vote in that primary, which means I'm going to have twice the ballots to send out and twice the postage. So.
You're gonna have to send out both ballots to the independent.
At this particular time, an unaffiliated or an independent has the option to come in and declare a preference for the primary. But if they don't, then we will probably be required to send out each of the ballots to those people, and they'll have to pick which one they want to vote for.
How does
Like
that keep them
Republican or
from?
Democrat, you're saying?
How do you keep them from voting both?
You can't, but if both ballots come in, then it's a voided ballot. It's a overvoted ballot, and it won't be counted.
Because are they given the same number, or how do you know that I voted for both?
You can only vote once.
You can only vote on one of the ballots.
Because of my signature?
Yeah, the ballot comes in back with an envelope and a signature, but this envelope might have both ballots in it. So it's going to be up to the judges when they open it up. If they find both ballots, then we're going to be notifying that voter that it's an overvoted.
What if they want in the primary, want to vote for a certain person or entity on the Republican side and then want to vote for somebody on the Democratic side?
Again, it would be a voided ballot. They have to pick one or the other. They can't do both.
Well, they can't pick, I want to vote for this position as a Republican, this position as a Democrat.
Correct.
Position that they're, wow.
Which is, I think, better than how it was.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Before you could not
Couldn't
vote.
do it, couldn't participate at
Now
all.
you have to cast a vote.
Yeah.
So they only get one envelope to return it in. Okay, that's part of the,
Yeah.
I was trying to figure where the controls were.
Yeah. Well, and the bad thing about that is if we have to send 2 ballots, it's going to cost us more to mail them out, and the purchase of, but being able to put them in one envelope will be less expensive than having to have 2.
2 of them, yeah.
Right now, we have 5,250 unaffiliated voters, so that would be an additional $5,000 that would have to be printed for the primary.
How many Democrats and Republicans is there?
There is, and I don't, because it changes daily, there's right around 7,000 Republicans in the county, and right around, I'd say probably 4,000 or 5,000 Democrats.
12 and 5 and 17.
Total registered voters at this time is 19,884 voters. That's all of the parties.
That is fantastic, though, out of 26,000.
Yeah.
Well, and some of those, a lot of those, if you take the people who are under 18, that can't register to vote at this point, students and things, so.
Right now, of those 20,000, or just under 20,000, we have about 2,500 that are inactive, which means that they've moved and we've got some sort of
Wrong address.
wrong address, or moved out of the county or something to that effect. You guys saw that I did the permanent drop box in the back
Yes,
of the.
and it's nice.
Isn't that cool? I just love it.
That's hopefully going to save you a lot of time in your office. Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking about with my operational expenses is possibly to maybe not buy all of them in 1 year, but I'd like to buy a few more of those. I'd like to have one in Dolores, I'd like to have one in Mancos, and I'd like to have one in Toyoak, so that they have those same opportunities. The only thing that would save them from coming up to us, but that would also cost us as far as sending judges to pick them up. But I would rather do that, and because you're going to get more participation if you have a Dropbox,
Yeah.
you know, where you can just drop it in.
Do those have to be under surveillance?
Security, yes. That's the expensive part, is it does have to have 24-hour security.
So would that be camera surveillance? So, I mean, if you added it to the other places, you would have to have a camera?
But can you, is it feasible to find a place that already has surveillance? That
That's
you put it
that's what
there?
I'm hoping to do. You know, like either like a bank
Right.
lobbyway, or you know, or the ATM, you know, by one of the banks, or even the post office or something to that effect. Even I don't even know if town hall has something like that. But that's what I was kind of thinking of, like close to town hall.
Or a game tracker camera.
Yeah. Watch the bears as they walk down the street.
How many times can that bear vote?
And let's see, the last thing I was going to mention to you with elections on professional services. I've been with the clerk's office 12 years, and we have been paying our election judges $10 an hour for the last 12 years. I'd like to just at least bump it up.
Well, I think you'll have to at least go to 10.20 or
Yeah,
whatever
that would
the
be
minimum
legal
wage
next
to
year.
change, but
Yeah, I was going to try and give them $11 an hour. You know, usually it's during presidential elections, it's quite a bit of money, but during off years, it's not that much. But
Is it 11 flat? Is that what it's going to?
it's 10.20 effective
Yeah.
January.
Okay.
And then it goes up 90 cents the next year, so
Okay,
then
to
it would be
11.10,
11.10 and then
it goes
$12.
Right, got it.
So we got to at least keep it at least to
at
that.
least that. The only thing that I did not include in this was the Dominion payment. I
Oh, yeah.
believe
And
that's
that's
still
over on the Capitol.
That's what I figured, it was still in the Capitol.
And that was a 6-year lease? Is
Yes,
that-
ma'am. 6 years.
But they did get a refund this year on the training. I mean, we put our payment was a little over 40,000. We got $11,000 back.
Which
the
was
training.
what the Secretary of State was talking to you about up at CCI. That
But I
if
thought it
we-
was supposed to be half.
it was half of the training portion.
Oh.
Yeah, half of the training. Let's see. I think the only other thing I wanted to mention to you about our salaries. Can we go back to the other one? Sorry. We've had some turnover in the office, and all of these new employees start at my base salary. So that portion is actually less.
Yeah.
It's actually less.
Yeah, you're from 392 to 389.
So, and you know, that's just a difference in the experience that we've had.
Right.
You know, I just feel like start them here and then as they go.
As they work it out.
So,
Good.
okay. Any other questions you have for me?
I don't have anything.
Very thorough, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ken.
Any questions? Just let me know.
We have
You're always handy here to us.
we have Firewise.
But
Rebecca's not here yet, but I guess I can take on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for seeing me, seeing us today. How are you?
Hi, how are
I
you?
thought I
Yeah.
saved this
morning.
and now it doesn't like it.
The PowerPoint? Oh, darn.
I think it's.
I hope it works out. I couldn't find my thumb drive. Becca's not here, so.
Did she have one?
She sent it to me, but it was on a shared drive and I don't know.
Got a few things. So we'll go over kind of an annual
Pass them down.
report first.
Oh, that's one.
Yeah, I'll just give it to you. And unlike the last time, we do have a budget proposal. Oh, good, it's working. All right, so we've been really busy this year.
This should.
Okay,
I thought.
should go down. Or maybe the over button. Try. Nope. It's always something, isn't it? Well, we can do this. That'll work. All right, so a couple of things might be a little redundant from our last meeting. You're welcome. So So I'll just kind of go over that. But so Firewise has been really busy. We made a lot of changes this year. Hey, there she is.
You guys?
Yeah, just got started.
We'll continue.
We couldn't wait without for you.
That's fine.
Anyway, we've made a lot of changes. We're growing a lot. We've hired a new administrative coordinator in our new office at the Commons building in Durango. So there'll be somebody there a couple times a week if people from Montezuma County or other counties in Firewise want to drop by, say hi, ask questions, get resources and things like that. Anyway, you can read that. I did a little bit of overview here for you to look at. We're also, the biggest change right now is our executive director, Pam Wilson, is semi-retiring, and we will be welcoming a new executive director, Ashley Downing, at the end of October. So
She's retiring.
She's
just wrapping up a few projects at the end of the year.
She just won't admit that she's fully retiring.
And what does the executive director do?
Gets all of our money. She does a lot of grant reporting and a lot of networking at large, making sure that our partners know what we're doing and can bring them in and keep them up to speed with, hey, these are what we need from the fire department, this is what we need from the State Forest Service. So not always financial, but also just kind of keeping all the wheels spinning. And,
she keeps us together.
Yeah, helping to make program decisions and direction with the steering committee and make sure that that's in line with what the contract staff are doing.
So we'll start with education, and that'll be on the first page of the handout that I gave you. So we're continuing our bi-monthly ambassador meetings. We've covered topics such as fire-resistant landscaping, remembering past wildfires. That was a community event that we had several speakers, including
Dyess and his son, and the assistant director at
Mesa Verde,
assistant SMO at Mesa Verde,
and Paul Hollar. So they spent the afternoon at the Mancus Library with us talking about past fires at Mesa Verde, the Roth Cap fire, Weber fire, and Paul Hollar talked about kind of lessons learned with the two fires and how they correlated and how they responded and how we came together as a community. So it was really a fun time. Defensible Space Tour we did at a neighbor's house. We have a cost share program that the community has been utilizing, in which they get work done in defensible spaces around their home and driveway. And then fire season updates. We hosted, actually, if you want to talk about that one, we hosted several exchanges and learning network programs.
That was this winter. We had people from Arizona, New Mexico, California, and all over Colorado that came and joined us for a couple of days to see how our program works here, and get some ideas and share their ideas back with us.
We participated in several youth programs, including field trips with the Mancus Library Outdoor Adventure Program and playground days here in Cortez with the San Juan Mountains Association. And we plan to incorporate wildfire preparedness lessons into school outdoor learning labs. We've had several neighborhood presentations with Jackson Lake, Elk Stream Ranch, Cedar Mesa Ranches, Granoff Mesa, Shiloh Ranch, Sunwest Estates, and Wing Spreads. We've had a lot of outreach this year, so I'm pretty excited about that. We've done several booths from Rico to Cortez, and we are planning on doing some outreach at Toayoc next month. Actually, this month, it's October now. Wow. We've also participated in state and national presentations for Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network, Fire Adapted Colorado, National Fire Protection Association came to visit Firewise in Durango last month to tour some neighborhoods that have been deeply involved with Firewise efforts. We're also holding a home ignition zone training. It's scheduled on November 2nd. The last page on your handout has the information for that, a flyer that you can print and copy if you would like to distribute that as well. Go on. Becca, do you want to cover planning since some of these are more what you've been working on?
Sure, if you would like me to, but these are the ones that you planned.
Oh, never mind. I'm blind.
We're just continuing to do community assessments, which are kind of a shorter version of the community wildfire protection plans. So we've got a couple of new ones that we did over here this year that have helped the communities get engaged. And then I've continued to work on, last year I came in here and talked with you guys about helping to review the wildfire mitigation plans or subdivisions for whether they needed that. So, and I think that's gotten a little bit smoother with how the process works between the planning department, and they just send all the stuff to myself and Bonnie Loving and say, hey, any comments on these? And then I go, that's not a subdivision, that's not a subdivision, that one is, because we don't have anything to say about high impact permits or otherwise, and I just go, maybe they need some information here. And we do have one landowner that I'm working with that minor subdivision with Voites to help him with some planning on his property. And then we're getting going in Toyok and trying to help them with a more coordinated planning program.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we're going to be there on October 13th for the housing fair. And that's going to be kind of a kickoff of bringing Firewise into the area and try to work on communications and getting people involved in preparing for wildfires, grass fires, and things like that that can easily come into Cortez and affect our area at large. We've had a lot of fuel reduction projects. Oops.
Yeah, I guess they had some close calls in Toyok this year, and they're a little.
Are they a participant in Firewise? Are they a financial participant with you guys?
We have not ever gotten any funding from the tribe, and to be fair, we haven't done a whole lot down there. But they're at the point, I think, where that might change significantly. They may even end up with kind of their own program out of it.
Yeah, because they've had some fires.
Oh, yeah.
They're pretty good fires.
We just met with the chief, and it sounds like he's hoping to work on getting some grant funding and working with us to help develop some sort of program.
Yeah, it's really different though, because you don't have homeowners, and this is the first time in the past I sensed a lot of like the housing authority not being necessarily on board with pushing the stuff, and we were meeting with one of the guys at the housing authority this time, and he was definitely on board and wanting to do something. And that's kind of key to actually making any difference around homes down here.
So several roadside and entryway work were done last time we met. Actually, I guess it was this time last year we met. We were planning on doing some outreach for May 6th for National Wildfire Protection Preparedness Month, and several communities participated. An interesting one with wing spread, in which trauma prescribed fire training came to do some work. That is partially sponsored by the Nature Conservancy, and I believe we're planning on doing some more projects with them next summer, maybe even this spring.
Yeah, it was interesting because they were all here. They were all in northern New Mexico to do prescribed fire on the ground, and they ended up with kind of some holes in when they were going to be able to burn, and we had some relationships with them in advance, and they said, do you have any communities that we could come and help you in? And so we actually got guys with SAW training and girls with SAW training who were available to come and help out with this work, which really increased the capacity of what they could get done in the neighborhood.
And the neighborhood that Cedar Mesa Ranch is, everybody involved was incredibly excited. They said they came in, they did a lot of good work, came out. We managed to find a little bit of extra money, or Pam did, to hire a local contractor to do some of the chipping of the slash that remained.
Up there at Granite Mesa, so it's right next to that Butler property. As soon as you get on the forest, and that's all been thinned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is that part of your guys'?
It is, and
and is it because it's next to that part of property? I mean, what?
No, so the stuff on Butler property, we actually did some thinning on her property that was tied in with that, but that was the forest's own project, and they actually would like to do 24 miles of boundary fence line, 100 to 200 foot buffer of thinning because it's adjacent to private land.
So that's
that'll enable them
okay.
to better manage. So this is the initial part of that they're doing. I didn't know anything about it until after the crews were already out there. That we didn't know anything about the thinning on the forward side of the fence. They are a little bit hung up right now. Again, you guys know that not having an archaeologist there has set them back in some stuff, and this is another thing where they can't go through and do the follow-up mastication on those rows, the windrows of slash that they have out there, until they get the NEPA clearance back from the state.
And they can't use the BLMs.
They are going to use the BLM's masticator, but they have to get the archaeology approved for using for masticating that area.
But the BLM has one.
Yeah, so they can use the BLM one. The BLM
The archaeologist
will use. The
The
archaeologist,
study.
not the archaeologist, but the masticator. The BLM has a masticator also, which they're going to use.
Oh.
But the archaeologist, they actually have somebody who's in here in detail for the last month and a half, or maybe around the last month, and so I think she's gotten that done by now. It just has to wait for the state's approval. But that's how they do get a detailer.
And what is a
their
masticator?
backlog.
What is that?
It's a big brush hog with a grinder on it.
Well, last, and I think we'll touch on that a little bit too further on in the slideshow. But last time we were here, we had talked about Cedar Mesa Ranches having their slash disposal weeks, and then the air curtain burner, and you were curious as to how that looked. This picture on the top is a little spectacular because it does have the fire. That's not really what it should be doing, so that'll often happen when they first put a load in. But they managed to get most of that slash removed in a week's time. What was left, bruised short, burned during that last snow that we had. But I wanted you to see that picture because I know you were interested in that slash.
Nobody's holding a hot dog stick.
We should have marshmallows over it next time, right?
So they did that last year, and they did it this year again.
And I believe they're planning on doing it again next May. Our Defensible Space Cost Share program, which I mentioned previously, we've conducted 36 assessments around Montezuma County. 11 of the landowners are taking advantage of our cost share program, so that pays up to 50% of the cost of their project. So community assistance to forest adjacent grants are planned and underway. And demonstration sites at Granada Mesa utilizing contract hand thinning, and I think that's when you asked if we were participating or had a part in. That's what I was. And there is that on Wednesday the tour?
The tour.
I don't think we put that on here, but we will have a tour of that property on Wednesday.
The Dwarf Collaborative is doing a tour to there this Wednesday morning to see those.
We're also developing a toolkit. So we've had a lot of interest in programs similar to ours, our Firewise program, nationally, in our ambassador program, which is unique. So we're working on putting together a toolkit so other programs can define what the program would be to them, but it would be similar to what we're doing here with bringing a member of the community into Firewise and giving them the tools and support that will allow them to work within their community to become better prepared for wildfire. Coordinating with partnerships to burn slash piles from Hampton. Oh wait, that's the same. Sorry.
Yeah,
I wanted
that's
the
a collaborative
Adams
process.
Ranch one.
That'll be interesting because, Adams Ranch we finished up last year, and I think we talked about that.
Yeah, I think
already.
we talked about
We're
that.
planning on doing a similar kind of training exercise where we'll work with partners on that this winter to get those piles burned up on Granada Mesa. They're not as big as the one on Adams Ranch, fortunately, but those took 10 years to get burned, and hopefully these ones will get burned in a few months.
So speaking of the ambassador program, this year we have held 2 new ambassador orientations. We just completed one last week on Thursday. We have 5 new committed neighborhood ambassadors, 3 new Firewise communities, and Cedar Mesa Ranches and Wingspread. I believe we told you this last time, have gotten their their national recognition through Firewise USA.
Where is that wing spread subdivision? I've never heard of that before.
It's a really small subdivision right next to the Heritage Center. So you have the two hills. They're the neighborhood on the adjacent hill.
Okay.
They're a new community, but they've been incredibly active. They've done, our ambassadors and ambassador liaisons have done an incredible amount of work with, on their own projects, with getting neighbors involved, and they've been able to accomplish this in a short amount of time, so we're pretty proud of them. So what's next? We want to continue programs like the chipper and air curtain rental rebates for communities and private landowners. We want to recruit and train new ambassadors, and that's like we do with the ambassador orientations and programs like our home ignition zone that we're doing in November, as well as other workshops and orientations that will come up in the future. Building new Firewise communities in high-risk areas of Montezuma County, completing more community assessments and developing wildfire protection plans, and of course working with partners like you to help prepare our community for wildfire. And yes, so we would like to invite the Board of the County Commissioners to join us for the home ignition workshop. And we also have a tour.
I'll print that one out and share that.
Okay.
We are one of the neighborhoods, Cache Canyon, Stinking Springs. Every spring they have a work day, and every fall they have a neighborhood like potluck and get together. And so they're doing a tour of some of their recent project work. Will be in the morning on the last Saturday in October. It's always when we have it. And this time they're also inviting other people in the community and VIPs to come on the tour if you want to see the work that's gotten done there. And of course to the potluck following as well, which we'll have Bonnie's going to come and talk about weeds, since that's another issue out in this neighborhood. And then we'll cover a lot of fire stuff and have the fire department there be able to go do driveway checks, to see if your driveway is accessible. So.
And we're also going to be inviting Firewise ambassadors from other neighborhoods, so that'll be a good opportunity to kind of meet those folks and learn what they do and what they're doing in their communities.
And I think you guys probably got the invite for the dwarf tour if you're interested in coming to that at the North Mesa on Wednesday.
And of course, you're always invited to join us for any Firewise activity or tour or meeting.
The last one on there was the retirement party for Pam and to meet our new director. We don't have the date set, but it's going to be the end of this month, and I'll certainly share that out in case you're interested. And if you want to wish Pam farewell and say welcome to our new, to Ashley Downing, our new director.
So as I mentioned, this isn't all fun and games. This time we are going to go over her budget proposal. And
where did Ashley come from?
She lives in Nevada now. She's native to California, and she's right on the Nevada-California border. And she works on a water basin conservancy for one of those desert terminal lakes out there. And basically, it's a little bit more land conservancy-based that she does. They've got a lot of land, trying to buy the water rights, essentially, that haven't been being utilized and get them back into this lake. She's got a lot of energy, and she's young, and her mom lives over in Durango, so she's wanting to get back to this area. Budget proposal, do you want to do it, or you want me to?
I'll let you do it.
The budget request is really similar to what we asked last year from you guys. It covers 80 hours of time for the coordinator position. It covers 20 hours of time. I just put in their director time, but I actually did that down at the assistant director rate, because our rate's going to be a little lower with the new director as well. So that covers some of both of our time to help support the work over here and get continued financial support for our programs and everything.
Because the new director's salary's cheaper?
It's a little bit lower, and part of why that is because she's going to be an employee. So she's going to actually be an employee of the San Juan Mountains Association. And so because of that, we don't have to offer the contract labor rates that we have been doing. So this is the first time we'll have an employee position. Mileage is the same, professional development is the same, and supplies and orientation, that keeps our home offices running.
Keeps me
and then fiscal agent fee is still at 4% with San Juan Mountains Association. And that is something that, we'll let you know how that goes, but that's something that I foresee changing with Firewise. We have a really good relationship with SJMA. They are also looking for a new director, and we don't know what that's going to mean as far as just, it might be time to grow up, become our own nonprofit, but we'll keep you posted on that. That'll be the same for this year anyhow. And then you can see this is really a small portion of the funding that comes into Montezuma County, what we request to you, but it is also critical because this funding, it's local money that we can match against federal sources. It's very hard, as you know, to find matches to federal funding. You can't match it with other federal funding. And it makes us really competitive when we show that our counties are supporting us. And we do have other money coming into the county. We pull money out of some BLM community assistance funding that we get to add additional hours to Amanda's time so that she can get all the work done that's being requested of her. And then we also have a little bit that goes toward that, putting an extra emphasis on in the month of May towards really outreaching to the community at large, not just working with our ambassador communities, and giving Amanda an opportunity to participate in Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network at the national level so that she has time to see what's going on in other places and share resources, like the ambassador toolkit that she mentioned. And then the big bulk of the funding that is going to be coming into the county is coming in the way of funds for projects on the ground. So we still have a bit of that community assistance to forest adjacent funding in the Joe Moore area. And I have a few projects that are going with that and a few more that are getting lined out that I expect will mostly be completed in 2018. And then the BLM Resilient Landscape private land mitigation dollars that are on there, that's all going to go to private landowners in a cost share amount to help get work done in dense areas, just wherever we have a need. We do not have money secured in here. Last year, this project funding, we also had funding for our chipper rental rebates and our cost share program that she was sharing you about, where we go out and do assessments, and then if you want help getting the work done, you can hire a contractor and we help pay a portion back. The main grant we're going to go after for that is open right now, so we won't know until late winter, early spring, whether we get that money from the state that supports us in that. But this is kind of a low estimate. We have a bit of BLM community assistance funds that we can funnel over here if we need to support the programs that we want to keep going.
So the U.S. Forest Service gives you guys $219,000. Am I reading that right?
So we got $249,000, $249,500 I think last year from the U.S. Forest Service. That is all money for projects on the ground, and that was tied to the corridor north and east of Highway 184 to be spent in that area with a focus around Joe Moore. So that we're putting it into one project where a lady has like 12 homes right adjacent to their 40 acres. So we're helping out that elderly couple with their work on their land that helped get those 10-year-old piles at Adams Ranch burned. And then it's going to help get some thinning done along a road that goes to all those homes that are on the north side of Joe Moore Reservoir. And then hopefully they'll do a lot more out there. Put it towards more cost share projects and some even some stuff on the state wildlife area adjacent to the communities. So yeah, that's money that's available for work next to.
What would you
Forest
say the
Service.
percentage is of that 219,000 or 240 would actually goes to the landowner, or does it goes to the contractors?
Goes to the contractors
to do it.
Yeah. So we the way we've been doing that, because it can be large chunks of money, is we'll just have the contractor send the invoices to us. If it's a big project, if somebody's getting 40 acres done, then we contract directly. And then if it's a smaller project, like in the area, the Voita property, if they hire a contractor, or some of the other private landowners that just have a few acres to be treated and they want to do our cost share program, then they'll pay for it and we'll reimburse them. But all of that money is going to almost all, 90+% of that. There's a little bit for our time to actually set up the contracts and everything.
Are these
it goes
are
to
these very
contractors.
expensive homes, or are they?
Not necessarily. Some of them can be, but some of them are modest.
It's open to
Some
everyone
of these
in there.
people might have a $500,000 home.
Potentially. I haven't run into any of those ones yet.
Somebody that's got a $500,000 home probably might be well off.
They could probably take care of that themselves. We
haven't
haven't
seen any of those.
So, one of the things that we did with the cost share program this year, that's the first time we really did a lot to, I don't know, what's the word, like, it's very well thought through at this point. So in the past, one of the things we would do is just offering up to 50%. And somebody might hire a contractor who's, petting the trees while they're out there, and it's $2,000 an acre. Well, we changed our process a little bit, so we actually have a cap on how much an acre we're willing to pay. So we do that based on like our going rate for contractors. So if you want to hire the expensive contractor, that's fine, but we're only going to cover half the cost of our acre cap, which is based on fuel density and topography and other stuff as well.
And the scopes of work are being done by us, so I'm going out and painting the trees and defining what work needs to be done in order to receive this reimbursement, and writing that out in a lot of detail, taking the pictures and the before and after. So really the homeowners are paying the contractors and then sending us the receipts. The invoices, thank you.
Well,
But then
honestly,
you
I
pay the
haven't
owner
seen
back that, right?
Yeah. Part of the cost based on, what their allowable word amount is. And I have to say, I haven't seen the big ones coming through the door, people with big, fancy, expensive houses. No, we wouldn't. I don't think we would turn somebody down because their income was too high, but that isn't what we've been seeing so far. It's been really kind of working class people who live around here, and some retirees as well, but not millionaires. It's not the sense that I get from what I've seen.
Do you have any other questions? I think we've taken more than our allotted amount of time. Well, thank you for having us today, and look forward to